OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
All right, you're very welcome along this Tuesday morning to OTB AM. It is Tuesday morning. It's not the start of the week. Eoin was not here on the opening day of the week because he was too busy being locked in some house of ill repute. Apparently that's not legal, Eoin, just so you're aware, right?
Pretty much bang on the money.
What time did you get home? What time did you crawl home? Was it dawn?
Well, Tommy thankfully did me the justice of not putting up my last scene on WhatsApp yesterday morning. He said he was going to do it. I think it was like 4:58 or something. So that was my return. The same as a lot of people, I'd imagine.
Most people were like, "Oh, it's a work day tomorrow. We can go home and we can party properly on a Saturday night and for 13 days' time." That's what most people did.
Yeah. I'm not around for the replay, so I'm going to miss that opportunity. But I don't know. Maybe people were still wired at 5 a.m. They still couldn't come down from what they'd seen in Croke Park that afternoon. I think that's literally the case for a lot of. I'd imagine if I tried to go to sleep at a regular hour on Sunday night, it just would not have been possible.
I'm sorry, but some of us tuned in to hear the death notices at 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon on Radio Kerry before you cheated on us so publicly with your old flame. And it wasn't even an old flame, it was somebody who rejected you when you were a teenager, I'm sure. And now it's like, oh, come on. And they allowed you to libel your colleagues, who you said gave you a terrible hard time in the build-up to the game, which is nothing was further from the truth.
You've got to feed the narrative, Ger. Not all of it was faux sort of narrative feeding. A lot of it was actually truthful. I actually woke up on Sunday and I was like, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
This is going to they say you should always listen to your parents. And my parents were up on Saturday and they were like, we're going to do this tomorrow. And I was like, gee, we're going to do it so. It just gave me that bit of courage. And then when I slept on it, woke up Sunday morning, I was like, it's going to happen today. All the logic dictates we don't have a chance, but it's going to happen today. Turns out I was wrong. We didn't do it and probably missed our chance.
I don't think you did miss a chance at all. I think that, I don't know, I felt fairly similar on Sunday walking into the game. I said to the person I was going with, I think Kerry are going to win this today.
It's a weird feeling you get on the day of a game. Like a lot of people, who's it? Donaghy, he says he can never predict a match until it's actually the day of the game.
3:27 and he sees who's playing. But it was Donaghy's analysis on Friday morning that really kind of got me, okay, right, that's actually not that complicated. The stuff they have to do isn't that complicated. It's not like we need to pull a magic trick. This needs to be everybody playing the games of their lives, and we have this crazy tactic that nobody's ever seen, like Jim McGuinness style, unfurling his 14 defenders when it gets to Croke Park. Kerry didn't need to do that. They have sensational forwards, and as you rightly pointed out when I was trying to troll you a bit, it was 8-7. Probably not. I mean, is it still 8-7 Dublin in a collective 15?
Johnny Cooper was one of the 8. Does that now? Well, Tom O'Sullivan was one of the 7 as well. They both had bad days at the office last week. I don't think too many defenders come away with their heads held too high.
Everybody, the narrative afterwards was, it was definitely a game for defenders. The defenders were on top. I was like, well, they weren't
as
really.
A unit.
I mean, they still conceded 116.
What was I'm only kind of catch up with you now. For me, because he played a lot of the second half in front of me, I thought perhaps Davy Byrne was the best defender on the pitch on Sunday. I know he has the glaring error for the goal. Outside of that, I thought he was really good. I thought he marshalled Paul Ganey at times excellently, and he's just a great clean tackler of a ball. You kind of want a defender to do something filthy, so you can get up out of your seat and say screw you. But Davy Byrne is actually such a good defender that you can't actually do that.
There was definitely times when I thought they'd taken a short kick out to Davy Byrne. I was like, geez, Davy Byrne runs a lot like Brendan Howard, a lot like Brian Howard. It's like it was actually Brian Howard just getting all those. Howard was sensational.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. This is the thing we talk about. It's like Dublin have such room for improvement, or that is the logic. And then you think about it and you're like, if you had to pick 3 men out for man of the match, you would have picked 3 dubs. You would have picked Howard, McCaffrey or Cluxton. A Kerry man probably wouldn't have been in the top 3 for man of the match, but yet this was a massive underperformance.
Sean O'Shea.
Well, Sean O'Shea, I guess. Yeah, Sean O'Shea, David Moran. They would be the 2 front runners for Kerry.
Good.
But I would certainly have McCaffrey and Cluxton as the 2 best players in the park.
Spillane get a mention for
And Gavin Crowley as well, probably, who's been quietly one of Kerry's best players all year long.
Now, I do wonder what happens if it's 15 on 15. Because at that stage
Dublin probably win the game.
There's so much more space for them, and they were getting good purchase from running straight at the centre of the Kerry defence. And they couldn't really do that as much in the second half, obviously, because every lung-busting run, there's nobody covering you.
It makes a difference for sure. I'm not going to say that Dublin wouldn't have been favourites if they had Johnny Cooper on the pitch. And it's nothing to do with Johnny Cooper being there because...
It's a 15th man. It's so done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. The one thing I would say is like that this whole... like, if you read too much into Twitter mentions, your head is going to be wrecked. But there are a couple of people who are like, oh, Kerry bottled it and stuff like that. Cop on to yourself. And
mostly Mayo fans going, if Mayo lost a game from that situation / didn't win it, you would just be trolling them.
It did. I did have to kind of like caught myself on a little bit on Sunday, and like it was like Kerry don't do moral victories. That's a very. It felt like I was watching the 2017 All Ireland football final again in the middle of the game, and then at the end of the game it was almost identical, except Dean Rock misses the free, even though it was from a worse angle. But like even non-Mayo people on Twitter was like, "Oh, you did a Mayo, you bottled it," and I'm not sure about that, to be honest with you. I think actually being in that position is actually something that can actually show the balls of this team. The kick-out strategy alone, it's like, yeah, we're going to leave Dublin 4-on-2 or 3-on-1 in our own half, and we're actually going to put up with that. And I think the greatest example of how ballsy Kerry were was actually Jack McCaffrey's goal. It was like, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. You push up on a kick out like that, you're going to get caught, and it happened, and McCaffrey scored a goal. But if that comes off, and Jack Barry caught a couple of great balls, David Moran caught a couple of great balls, then it shows that the game plan is working. So I have absolutely no issues with that, but I think calling it a bottle job is extremely harsh.
It definitely wasn't a bottle job. I mean, like, Mayo didn't bottle it either. They came up against a really good team who know exactly how to win under very difficult circumstances. At what point did you think you were going to win, and at what point did you realise that you weren't going to win?
When Tommy Walsh puts that ball over the bar. Because it's like winning a golden ticket. You could actually see the Dublin players drop off Tommy Walsh for his first effort that he ballooned wide. And when he kicks it, you're like, oh, what are you doing, Tommy? And then when he takes it out again, he's like, what are you doing, Tommy? And then it actually goes over the bar.
We were right behind that, so it never looked like it was going anywhere other than, I was like, hang on, that's supposed to go wide.
Because it's Tommy Walsh who's been poor off the boot all year. Like, everything else he's done has been absolutely superb, but off the boot he's been desperate.
If he was to add three or four points from play over the course of 80 minutes, start the man.
Yeah, I will say that there was never a prolonged period where I thought Kerry were going to do it. Like for Killian Spillan's goal, I shot up vertical out of my seat, 2 fists in the air, and I immediately hit the ground and went straight back into my seat. I was like, I'm not celebrating this. This is too good to be true. This just cannot happen.
Still 2 points down at that stage.
Exactly. Was it 1 point down or two?
It was two
at that point. And I did think it was absolutely done when McCaffrey put them 5 up. I was like, that's it, done. Great stuff. Move on to next year sort of stuff. But it didn't happen. It was just strange. And like, if David Moran doesn't move into the tackle in the middle when Kerry are in possession and perhaps stays along the end line, stays along the sideline, I should say, then perhaps Kerry win the game and they might set up another score. And like people say, Kerry were a little bit too ponderous in possession when they were a point up. But he still got turned over in Dublin's half. It wasn't like they were playing it in front of their own goals. So I think that analysis is only kind of half true as well. And maybe they will learn from that as well. I think they will definitely learn from it in the long run. But whether or not they learn from it in 2 weeks kind of remains to be seen. I think the Dublin bench just isn't as terrifying as it used to be. No. I think going down the home stretch, like we had when we did the Kerry Dublin thing, just as a final point, when we did it at the top of the show a couple of weeks ago, when I went 8-7, one of the most contentious things I think I said was that if you had to pick a 16th man, would you go for Diarmuid Connolly or would you go for Tommy Walsh? And I said I would rather go for Tommy Walsh at this point. And I definitely think I stand by that after the weekend. I think it's actually in a stronger position after the weekend.
Look, I think that we haven't seen Connolly play for more than 5 minutes in a proper championship match. Obviously, the Tyrone game plays 70 minutes of that, but like it's a friendly. It was noticeable that they were ready to bring him in from about the 56th, 57th minute, and then he's like standing there from 62 minutes. I would like to have seen him with those extra 5 minutes to have that rangefinder early and go, okay, I got my eye now, and then have another chance.
To what extent, when Jim Gavin's talking after the game about it being a poor performance in Dublin, to what extent do you think that's based on Connolly and Paddy Small and Mannion having pot shots from areas that Dublin do not have pot shots from?
Mannion's allowed because in the semi-final he took them from the sideline and they were going over. So like
the Paddy Small one in particular, I'd imagine, had Jim Gavin pulling his hair out. And I think it's such an egregious crime as a Dublin player that I would not be surprised to see Paddy Small drop from the panel entirely and Bernard Brogan brought in.
Paddy Small is the forward that I think was...
He's not going to be first up next time.
Well, he's the one that all year they've been talking about. Like, I think it's going to be Paddy Small who makes the difference for this Dublin team this year. He's the one who's stepping forward, so clearly he's doing a lot of good stuff in training. I don't think he's got a punishment. He's not a punishment substitution guy. Like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that bench. Like whether or not there is suddenly a decision to go, okay, well, maybe we do need some street smarts from a retiring footballer in the shape of Brogan. Like, it'll be very interesting to see if Brogan can force his way in the next couple of weeks, but that wouldn't be that wouldn't be Jim Gavin, would it?
I'd have him in there. I'd have Bernard Brogan in the 26, no question about it, especially given what we saw last weekend. The question is, like, across a lot of the papers this morning as well, is the Cian O'Sullivan injury worry, which I think is very significant going into a replay, because what does Gavin do to ensure that a repeat doesn't happen, to ensure that they don't get into car trouble again? And a sweeper is probably one way around that, and Cian O'Sullivan has done that so effectively in the past, and it works in a multitude of factors as well.
But you can turn Johnny Cooper into your sweeper, and so don't give him responsibility for marking Clifford. You can put Fitzsimons on Clifford, you can put Johnny Cooper in as the sweeper, and again it's Niall Scully or somebody else who ends up getting subbed out. Or maybe Brian Howard is the sweeper, and like that's an amazing thing to have where you're actually putting him on the ball the whole time. So I don't know.
Yeah, like you could easily do that, and he just pops up for kick-outs and stuff. Like, it has to have been one of the most fascinating displays of kick-out strategy from both teams we've ever seen. Like, it was just absolutely enthralling, and you could say Shane Ryan had a good day at the office relatively, and he still lost a number of kick-outs, put a couple out over the sideline.
Mozzie was saying the ones over the sideline were actually they
were close enough to being perfect.
Well, they're in the perfect place. It's somebody else has screwed up their run, so he looks a bit like a tube because he's, but it's actually somebody else is supposed to be getting there quickly enough so that it doesn't go out over the sideline, because that's in the gap. Mozzie did the tactics board for it yesterday. I'm sure you were recovering.
I actually did catch a good bit of the show, but I didn't catch the tactics board. But like, one of them did go like skied over the sideline, which was a bad kick out. But I thought under the pressure and given the way like he hasn't exactly had a perfect season either, I thought he was really, really good. But then you look at the other side, and like, once Cluxton retires, you have to say that this Dublin team is going to take a step down, because nobody will ever be as good as him again. He is just he's close to flawless. It is, I think I said it on Twitter the last day, it is such a lukewarm thing to say because everybody knows this.
I thought there were a few opportunities where there was a free Dublin runner that he didn't pick out from a kick-out. There was a bit of hesitation there. Now, that hesitation might be natural when you have giants like pressing the way Kerry were pressing, but there was definitely, like in the midfield 10, in between the bang in the centre of the field, there were players running who traditionally you would have seen Paul Flynn make that run, and suddenly the ball's delivered to him in space. Like, it's bouncing to Paul Flynn because they were kind of so telepathically aware of each other's movements, and that didn't happen. There was, I don't know what, like from where we were kind of high in the Hogans, you could see it very well. But look, the rest of the game was sensational. The penalty save, the save from Paul Murphy. People are saying the save from Paul Murphy was, I don't know, was it going to hit the crossbar anyway?
My take is that it would have hit the bottom of the crossbar and gone in. I think the fingertips give it you can actually see the trajectory of the ball completely change, not the trajectory, the spin on the ball completely change. That's enough for me to actually hit the middle of the crossbar. Penalty save, by the way, the whole coming off the line thing, he would have saved it anyway. If it's a fingertip save and you're coming off the line, then you're saying, well, that makes a difference. But he saves it with his palm, and he saves it with the boss of his hand almost. So if he's on the line, he still makes that penalty save. And it wasn't an amazing penalty. It wasn't an amazing penalty from Paul Geaney. I know he didn't score, but I thought after that he actually rebounds really well and actually has a really good game. I didn't actually realise that he didn't score until after the game.
Yeah, I don't. Like, he's not in danger, is he?
No, definitely not. I thought he put in a really good shift, and same with Clifford as well. Like, it's mad to think that they were close to a perfect performance, and still they got 1 point between Clifford and Geaney.
2.
Was it 2? Did Clifford score 2?
I think he scores 2. He scores an amazing one in the second half. Scores a great one in the first half.
Oh yeah, that's it. Like that.
Scores a wild one from the touchline. It wasn't quite. It must have been right in front of you, was it?
I was in Cusick. No, the first half he was over at the other side. I was on the hillside of the Cusick, so I would have been away from where Kerry were shooting in the first half. Like I don't know. The thing is, I'd love to see. I need to watch the game back and actually see what sort of impact the sending off had on David Clifford in terms of, like, would Cooper have being stuck on him and Jim Gavin afterwards defended keeping Cooper on him? Would that have allowed Clifford to get into a bit more position, because the Dublin players think he's covered when in actual fact he's actually twisting and turning Cooper around the place, and it makes things different. I'm not for 1 second suggesting that the sending off benefited Dublin whatsoever here, but I just would have liked to see that matchup for a little bit longer. Having no matchup was almost a worse situation.
But then he's got Fitzsimons.
Yeah, it's Fitzsimons, exactly.
And there was the brilliant bit where he goes at Fitzsimons 3 times and then eventually swings it back and kicks it left-footed over.
That was the game in microcosm. It was a defender doing everything they possibly could, like a piece of Velcro, tying him down, and there was nothing he could do because Clifford was just brilliant. Clifford was awful at times in the first half, and the other thing then that we kind of summed it all up was kind of one of about 2 or 3 runs that David Moore made, and it was kind of like a nest of wasps with a load of wasps trying to get in, but they just couldn't. And he just swatting people away as he tries to burst through into the opposition half.
Brian Howard dribbling into 3 Kerry defenders.
Yeah, Howard is unbelievable.
On the edge of his own square. From a short kick out where it's just like chipped up to him. It's like, yeah, I'll dribble into you. Oh, there's 3 of you. I'm going to go backwards. I'll go again. Oh, I'm just going to skirt past you out to the sideline. Oh, there's another person there. A little twist, a little shimmy. It's like, what the hell are you doing?
Howard's a special player. I would be interested to see, like, if Dublin do play sweep to the next stage, just how drastically that changes the entire spectrum of the game. Because it means perhaps a little bit more space in the 45. Does that mean then someone like Stephen O'Brien gets more into the game, who was largely anonymous? Stephen O'Brien, Brian Fenton, both anonymous basically on Sunday, arguably the player of the year for both teams.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if what type of game they both have in the replay and just how fit everybody is. The other thing, couple of things that we need to talk about, obviously Devin Toner is not in the Ireland squad. Massive backlash against that from it's being led largely by Luke Fitzgerald. We'll deal with that in just a little while. And then the other thing that we wanted to talk about was Shane Long not making the squad for the games this weekend. Obviously, nobody really cares about the Bulgaria game. It's just a friendly. But the other game against the Swiss is a massive, massive game. It's live on Off the Ball on Thursday evening. David Myler's on CoCom alongside Nathan Murphy, so make sure you're tuned in for that. 7:46 a.m. this morning. So Mick McCarthy yesterday was talking about various players not being in the squad, and he was talking about Shane Long not being able to get a place in the squad at this stage. You can have a look at this. Okay, so there's just a problem with the audio on that piece, but basically Mick is saying that it's still there for him. He's just not playing football at the moment. He's just not getting enough game time.
Even though he's played more Premier League minutes than Jeff Hendricks so far this season.
Jeff Hendricks probably going to play, right?
Yeah, and he actually name checks Jeff Hendrick in the bit where he's talking about players needing game time. Now, I presume he's referring to League Cup football, which Jeff Hendricks obviously got, but he's got a grand total of 4 minutes so far this Premier League campaign, where Shane Long has 28 minutes.
He played a game in the League Cup, Owen. League Cup obviously very, very important in terms of preparing yourself for the biggest home game we're going to have in the competition.
And I'm all for getting on the back of your favourite thing, momentum, when it comes to picking international players, and perhaps someone like James Collins does have momentum in terms of the way his club career is going. But it's Shane Long. Like, granted, he is not the Shane Long of old, but this is a squad place. This is somebody who you presume is a positive influence around the camp, somebody who has done it on pretty big stages for the Republic of Ireland in the past. It does seem like a pretty huge exclusion on a standalone basis.
From the squad?
From the squad, exactly. Like, on the bench, I've got no issue with. But from the squad. But then it just makes it a little bit more strange when he starts talking about minutes and how he spoke to Shane Long and he played a bit of pre-season, but pre-season is pre-season. And
League Cup is League Cup.
Yeah. Like, it's just made a little bit more interesting by what Mick McCarthy said and his quotes in the newspapers this morning and what we heard there. That makes it a little bit more strange for me. On a standalone basis, though, as I say, it is kind of weird as well. Like, he would be a great squad player, a great player to bring in, and like it does kind of come amidst, I would say, a season that started from an Irish perspective in very mixed fashion. Like, you have someone like Conor Hourhan coming into the league in really good form of the championship last year. We thought he could become an established Premier League player now, just like he was an established championship player last season. That sort of faded away a little bit. Jeff Hendry couldn't get into the team. Obviously, Glenn Whelan going up to Scotland, doing pretty well, and that was kind of checked as well by Mick McCarthy in his press conference as well. And then you have like the Sheffield United aspect, which has been massively positive as well. So it has been mixed, but at least we're in kind of a state of motion at the moment when it comes to Irish football. Things are changing. It's not like we're stuck in the same sort of Jeff Hendrick is our only kind of stalwart in midfields. I would like to have something different, and that's what we're getting this year.
Well, there's a bunch of kids coming through as well. Who we were talking about it a little bit with David Sneyd last weekend and or this day last week, and talking to a few people close to the Irish camp. They're very excited about the quality midfielders and defenders who are coming through. Like, there's just like good players getting game time
But the one really concerning thing, though, from the weekend was that you talk about defenders coming through, and Ireland's best defender doesn't start.
Yeah,
and
he's injured.
You do have Graham Potter coming out saying, like when it comes to Shane Duffy, that actually, that's what I mean. That this was a tactical decision.
Sorry, I thought you meant Matt Doherty.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, probably, to be fair, Matt Doherty's probably Ireland's best defender. But the Shane Duffy thing would have been doubly concerning for me, because he'd obviously gone to a back three at the start of the season, Graham Potter, and you thought to yourself, this is interesting. Shane Duffy playing in a back three. Could this perhaps signify to Mick McCarthy that he's got the centre backs required to play a back three, which of course would mean Matt Doherty could play as right wing back, and then all of a sudden Potter drops Shane Duffy. So they have a new record signing that started in his place at the right of a back three at the weekend. So although they did get tanked by Manchester City, so maybe he gets back into the team. That like, as I say, there's a lot of moving parts. It's been a very interesting opening 4 weeks for the Irish.
Yeah, I would back Shane Duffy to get back into that team, and I'd also back Conor Horan to start playing a lot of football. Like, comes off the bench for the last 20 minutes in the game, is right there at the last second whenever the drama happens for Villa Palace at the weekend. Unshin Max says, if you start Hendrick at the fart, it'll probably be the same team as before. If this was Martin O'Neill, you'd be going mad, but it's the media darling Mick, so go easy on him. I didn't get the memo to go easy on Mick McCarthy. I think this is a bad decision, and I think that at the end of Mick's time, everybody's going to go, oh yeah, okay, that's great, you did one term. Let's see what Stephen Kenny has. That's my prediction.
We won't have actually made a huge leap forward.
Well, we won't be going, oh, what a terrible situation. We have to give you another 2 years, Mick.
Yeah.
That's my prediction. Hardly doesn't make any sense, seeing as he's picked Hendrick, who's not played much more and will more than likely start, and willing to bring McCarthy on the back of a few under-23s games. In fairness, McCarthy played in the League Cup as well, but look, now he's not there, so what are you going to do? And then a couple of comments on YouTube. Dublin by 10 in the replay, says Elm 2018. That is definitely not going to happen. It's not going to be... Whatever happens now, Kerry are established as a proper rival and potential Ireland winners within the next couple of seasons. Like that,
definitely, yeah.
They've got the 2 best 20-year-old footballers. What age is Con? 22? 23?
I think, probably, yeah.
23 now, is he? Con looked like Maradona at one point.
How do you mean?
Just the centre of gravity and the ability to run at full pace when you're like almost parallel to the ground as opposed to standing upright.
Yeah, it's just so weird that we're talking about a game that Conor Callan had very little direct scoring impact on, and though it's
well, so he wins frees, and like there could have been 2 more penalties.
Well, that's the thing.
Stephen O'Brien could have had a penalty. I haven't seen that one back yet, but everybody at the time says that was definitely a penalty. And Con jumps from inside the penalty area and gets fouled. So, like, you know, you've seen them given.
Yeah, for sure. This is the thing that I don't think there's any vindication for Kerry unless they actually go on and win the replay. There will be questions asked. But one of the things when it was criticised of Kerry over the last couple of years of their defence was not just the running at the centre of their defence, but it was also their tackle. Now, I think the tackling has obviously improved so much this year under Donny Buckley. There's no question about that. But there is still a problem when it comes to fouling quite a lot in their own half. It's something that really plagued them 2 seasons ago, and it's something that really kind of hurt them again last week. But when it comes to 2 seasons ago, I thought
teams want to give those frees away, don't they? I think
against Dean Rock.
I think it's tactical though. It's like Dean Rock's going to score 6 or 7 from place balls, and it means that they're not going to get momentum up, and it means that the shooters aren't going to get confidence, and it means that, you know, like there's a trade-off.
Yeah, it's true, and I guess giving away free does allow you to reset a little bit. It's certainly better than allowing Conor Callan to go free at the defence and giving the chance of a goal away. I know we're going to move on to the papers, but like one of the things that really kind of surprised me actually was it definitely happened on one occasion. Kerry had a free, put it over the bar, and then Stephen Cluxton gets a very quick kick out away to his fullback. I was like, this is a free. This is where Kerry are at their best against the kick-out. They should be waiting for Sean O'Shea to be ready, or Sean O'Shea should be waiting for the Kerry attack to be ready, wait for the full press, then kick the ball over the bar, and then you're in position. So, like, tactically even Kerry didn't get it off to a tee either. Like, there is this talk that Kerry had the absolutely perfect performance and that it can't go any better to them. And they can get it better as well.
Well, there were times when the press worked unbelievably well for Kerry, and then they just didn't do it.
That's exactly what I mean. It just didn't make any sense. A free is the perfect time to do it because you have time to set. The other thing then that struck me is that the whole analysis around Jack Barry in the build-up saying, oh, can he do it like he did it 2 years ago? I accept I didn't think that was an accurate analysis because it was 2.5 years ago when he did a real job in Brian Fenton. But one of the things that was also said 2.5 years ago was that, right, they managed to get a draw against Dublin down in Tralee. There's no way they'll be able to do it against them in the league final. And then they come back a couple of weeks later and beat them in the league final after getting the draw. So it is possible to give Dublin a rattle and then give the Dublin a rattle again a couple of weeks later and actually do one better.
Yeah, no, totally. And Jack Barry didn't mark Fenton.
That's the thing.
Like
he was
they all marked Fenton.
Yeah,
and they all kind of had a role. Now, look, I don't know if Fenton was at full tilt. He wasn't getting on the ball.
He seemed off. Like there is talk that there was an injury as well to Brian Fenton, and I would not be surprised whatsoever. So he's got an extra 2 weeks now to get himself back to 100%.
Yeah. All right. We will tell you what's coming up. We're a little bit late with this. 7:55 this morning. More talk about the All-Ireland football final, because let's face it, it was one of the greatest occasions, certainly the tensest sports event that I've been at. Talking rugby from 8:20 this morning. You can tweet us with the hashtag OTBAM. Going to talk about the Devon Toner situation. Going to preview Ireland against Switzerland around about 8:40. The problems with Shane Long not getting in the team at the minute, and sports news coming your way at 9:05. Papers next. Here we go. Irish Times, right? Obviously the squad comes out yesterday. We were here sitting here yesterday. You obviously missed this, but we're sitting here with Quinny going, so just let's get this right? They to pick the squad yesterday. They to tell World Rugby this morning, but they're not going to announce it for a week. Why? How does that? He's like, I don't know. It doesn't really make any more sense. It's going to leak. It's like, if you tell a player he's not in the squad, what's going to happen? It's going to tell somebody, naturally enough, because why wouldn't he? And so instead of having the choreographed, proper announcement the way everybody else did, they got forced into it because Rory O'Connor got the leak. It made no sense whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. And like even the media department of the IRFU was ready to rock because they had the nice graphic done of the team and all that. So everything was in place for this team announcement to happen yesterday. Like, you presume it's because they have one more warm-up game and that maybe Schmidt thinks it's bad optics for somebody to be called in afterwards and things like that. But
he was playing in that game, not to be playing.
Yeah, but that's
like Devon Toner, is he expected to play this weekend now? Is that?
Well, I would have thought that perhaps he was keeping his options open in terms of perhaps John Klein could get injured this weekend or something, and then he could say, oh, Devon Toner was always going to be in the squad. But I think that's nitpicking, and perhaps that wasn't the case. I can't get my head around why.
Sorry, that was kind of one of Quinny's thoughts anyway. So look, yeah, there are times that Schmidt and Jerry Thorney reckons it's a strong-looking squad. But the best piece in the most interesting piece in the Irish Times this morning comes from Matt Williams. And he has, for like last January, this is great stuff. Last January, a member of the Irish team told me that Dev was on the outside. I couldn't believe it. When I asked why, I was answered with a shrug of the shoulders. They want him out. So they wanted him out of the team. That was last January. Now, he did play in the Six Nations. Or was he injured at that stage? I thought he played in the game against England and was outshone. I feel the decision to remove Dev is more a reflection on Joe Schmidt. Joe appears tired and weary of the battle. His time is coming to an end, and for me that time cannot come quickly enough. Joe has been a great coach, but his decisions are indicative of a regime out of touch with the team and the people. Jesus. It's
a strong old column from Matt this morning. His going back to like the Henshaw thing is an interesting one. That was the decision that really has such a huge bearing on everything that's happened in 2019. Is that putting a little bit too much into one positional call? The idea of Henshaw full back in that game being the kind of the one step to a road of misery that has been 2019 so far. Because I do remember in the immediate aftermath of that first half showing from Ireland, Matt Williams was one of the only people to say straight away, this Henshaw thing has been a disaster. Whereas everybody else, and my view would have been, this was just a disaster all around the pitch. This wasn't just down to Robbie Henshaw 15 or one bad call.
Well, so his point is that that's a chain reaction, and that's indicative of a coaching, of a head coach and the decision that he makes being wrong, and so therefore everybody else is like, well, he's making weird, what's going on? This is all weird. Can't be making bad decisions.
It is interesting as well, though, that he makes that point about Devon Toner and saying how they wanted him out early on. I'm not sure about that. I think he would have been given a fair crack at the whip now. I think.
Well, he says it's from a member of the team, so that's not opinion. Okay, so it's obviously hearsay, and he's not naming the person who told him it, but he says a member of the team reckoned at that point they wanted Devon Toner out.
And I'm just looking at it here. So Devon Toner obviously does play against England, as you say. I was just trying to see to what extent does he get outshone, as you put it. He did get taken off after 57 minutes. So I wonder, is it at that moment then that Joe Schmidt knows he's not coming to the World Cup?
Potentially, there's like a number of tackles I think is very low compared to James Ryan. Now, if James Ryan plays the whole match, you need a tackles per minute, and that's kind of not really fair for one game either. The Examiner this morning. Giant omission, Toner the surprise casualty as Schmidt reveals 31 for Japan. And they've also got continuing analysis of the All-Ireland football final inside.
Back page of the Herald this morning is Dub injury worry. O'Sullivan and Small main concerns for champions. If Keane O'Sullivan and John Small both missed the replay for Dublin, this is a huge blow
well,
for Jim Gavin.
Didn't play in that game, right? Is that why you think they had such issues?
I think so. I think if Keane O'Sullivan is fit, he has to start the next day. I think
He hasn't played a lot this year, though.
It's true, but it's what he brings. He plays that role for Dublin better than anybody else can. The template for next Saturday should be what Tyrone did against Kerry in the first half, which was completely frustrating. If Kerry get into a slow build-up play, they're not amazing, like they're grand, but what they thrive on is speed and getting Clifford and Gainey and whoever else into one-on-one positions in the forwards.
Yeah, so Merchant's fast, right? But none of the rest of their defensive subs have pace, do they? So you wouldn't say Philly's fast. You wouldn't say Keane O'Sullivan is fast.
No, just thinking of it there. No, they definitely wouldn't. And there is a big disconnect now, bigger than we've ever seen before in this 5-in-a-row run between the Dublin starters and the Dublin bench. They're like, when you see the likes of Paddy Small coming on, maybe he will be somebody who'll strike fear into opposition in a few years' time. But you're like, that's okay. When Diarmuid Connolly comes on as a Kerry supporter, you're like, okay, right, this is a big substitution. And I think Brogan brings that as well. I think there's a mental aspect to this. This is still a young Kerry team, and this can go one of two ways. I personally think it'll feed into far more belief in this Kerry team, but it could also feed into a greater sense of pressure now. And when they see someone like Bernard Brogan coming on in a replay,
what's up for grabs.
Yeah. The other story here in the back page of the Herald is Swiss boss admits to Shaqiri fallout. So this is Vladimir Petkovic, who did a press conference in Zurich yesterday, and he says that the relationship could be better. I think we have to accept Sheridan's decision. He thought that was the best thing for him to do, was to not come, and I accept it. So it seems that all is not right in the Swiss camp, and he's getting a lot of criticism naturally from the press and from Swiss football fans as well, because he's one of their better players, and he wants to focus on his club.
Yeah, where he's obviously pulling up trees at the minute and getting loads of game time. That story doesn't make any sense yet. The truth is yet to come out, right? The Irish Daily Mail here, Joe's big call, Schmidt acts as Toner to draft in Klein for Japan. Joe Schmidt showed his ruthless side, it says, as the Ireland head coach cut Devon Toner from his World Cup squad. In fairness, there is more to Matty Williams' column where he's saying that this selection only adds to the malaise. To leave Dev out and include a recently qualified South African is to ignore internal team dynamics. No current player is going to publicly criticise the decision, but internally players won't be pleased. Is that true? Do you think players aren't? Do you think players are like, oh, we need to go to the World Cup and win, and this guy gives us a better chance of winning?
Yeah, I would say that's probably it. If they really believe that. I'm sure there's plenty of people in the squad who, if they were Joe Schmidt, they would have picked Devon Toner, but their own kind of allegiances perhaps to their own province or to their relationship with Devon over the years might come into that, and that's why Joe Schmidt is coach, because he can be cold and he can be ruthless, and these are the rules of the game. Whether you agree with it or not, John Klein is available. It does seem from looking at Schmidt's quotes yesterday that Klein's relationship with Tadhg Byrne could be one of the reasons why he's been included, that he sees them as a potential second row pairing for the Samoa and Russia games especially, and also he talks about being the tight head lock, and it's not something that we see too much of. We kind of like, who are our two best locks? We don't often get into the nitty gritty of who's actually better on the right side, who's better in the number 5 jersey, and it seems that that's a specific issue that Joe Schmidt might have actually pointed out over the last couple of months.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, that it becomes a thing when you, like, if what Matt Williams says is accurate, or it wasn't just somebody saying it to him, and they were trying to get Dev out of the team, then suddenly, we've got this thing, like, what's the story, what's the narrative, how do we frame it? Just a quick 2 lines from Rory Keane in the Mail. It's just as well the IRFU don't organise stag weekends. The terms booze up and brewery sprang to mind yesterday in the midst of the leaked World Cup training squad fiasco. It was a fiasco. Being forced to announce your team a week earlier than you were trying to keep it under wraps for no apparent reason.
Knowing that it will get leaked. There hasn't been a single Irish team for the Six Nations that hasn't got leaked in about 5 years of this.
See, I think they were leaking all those themselves over the last while to keep people on side.
Right.
That's my take, and I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
The Irish Independent goes
Great
with Luke Fitzgerald quote, "Toner snub undermines system." You've got that line from Michael Verney as well that delivered in the Herald on the back page of the Indo. Small and O'Sullivan doubtful. And Colm Keys saying McCaffrey gets man of the match award away from cameras. I was talking to somebody who would have known after the game on Sunday that McCaffrey got man of the match, but I didn't realise that it actually just wasn't done. They didn't release Jack McCaffrey, Dublin's media team. They only allowed Jim Gavin to speak to RTE. So John Horan handed Jack McCaffrey his award behind closed doors.
Right, that's
Croke Park on Sunday.
I'm sure he'll treasure it. It's like, oh, great. What if we lose the replay? Drive for €4.5 million. So the GA have reduced ticket prices, and it's only going to be £4.5 million that they get from the gate receipts, apparently. I'm not sure that those figures are taking into account the extra cost for premium tickets as well. So anyway, look, I'm sure some of those tickets are 10-year tickets, and you only write off a certain amount of value for them. Axed Devon deserves answers. World Rugby Vice President Augustine Pichot thinks Devon Toner should be asking the governing body for answers. You see this, Pichot?
I didn't actually see this, no.
Oh, Pichot.
That's a bizarre wading into Irish affairs, isn't it?
Pichot tweeted, "If I was David Toner, I would be asking World Rugby for answers. They need to delete that one."
Tommy says there's a Meath footballer called David Toner.
They need to delete that one and they need to send another one. I think there was actually a third time when eventually he got it right. "If I was Devon Toner, I will be asking WR World Rugby for answers. I feel sorry for him. Nothing against for who was properly selected for the RWC 19, by the way, but feel that way." And then, obviously, Luke Fitzgerald waded in as well. So, Mick open to a Sheahan recall. See what they've done there? They've got the claret jug, the open. It's Mick and it's Sheahan, but it's a different Sheahan. Clever. Mick McCarthy insists he hasn't brought the curtain down in Sheahan Long's international career. Long was dealt a double snub ahead of Thursday's Euro 2020. First, he was omitted from McCarthy's revised squad last week, and then on Sunday, instead, Luton's James Collins was called up instead of when Sean Maguire got ruled out.
Back page of the Sun this morning is Road to Euro 2020. "You're really going to need a major performance," says Shane Lowry. James McLean replies saying, "Mick has brought us great claret E."
Hey.
James up for it, F-O-R-E. It's another golf pun there in case you missed it. Devastated, says Neil O'Riordan. Neil O'Riordan also writing about the Swiss camp. "Shaqiri's exit sparks memories of Roy Keane's bust-up with Patrick Vieira." There's another international saga involving Roy Keane that is also pretty apt, I'd imagine. Prem says, "You're right." So Premier League clubs will have until September the 1st to do their transfer business next summer. So if you were hoping for a 17-hour broadcast encapsulating the preview of the Premier League and the transfer deadline day, it's not going to happen next year. So we'll have to do two of them. Trippier on Spurs KO. Kieran Trippier is hit out at Daniel Levy and Maurizio Pochettino for the way he was kicked out of Spurs. Interesting stuff from him. The London Times this morning, "We will target Rusty Smith, vows broad." You've got clubs want to extend window, as I just mentioned, and Bury owner received £115,000. This is also an interesting one, which is just kind of mentioned at the top of the Times. A quick escape. World's fastest man dodges ban for missing drugs tests. So this is something we've kind of mentioned a couple of times on the show over the past couple of weeks. Christian Coleman and his failure to show up for drugs tests 3 times in the space of a 12-month window, which under rules would lead to a 1-year ban. He has managed to get one of those missed tests backdated because of the fact that if you miss a test within a quarter, the date should be backdated to the first date in the quarter. So I just have the dates here. So USADA recorded filing failures for Coleman on the 6th of June 2018, 16th of January 2019 and 26th of April 2019. But because 6th of June 2018 falls into the second quarter, his lawyers argue that that should be backdated to the 1st of April, the first date of the quarter. Now, I don't know why this is the rule, but this is the rule that they managed to get away with. So 6th of June 2018 becomes 1st of April 2018, and because the last one was 26th of April 2019, it's outside of the 12-month window, and you can only get banned for a year if you miss 3 tests within a window, even though he missed one of these tests, all 3 of these tests within the 12-month window. So loophole is what I'm seeing here. They managed to hop through it, and Christian Coleman will be running in the World Championships.
What's your buddy Travis Tigert saying about this?
I haven't actually seen what he's said about this, because 2 of the 3 tests would have been directed by USADA, and then it was Athletics Integrity Unit who came up with the last one. So USADA themselves have withdrawn the charge, and this was from guidance from WADA that this appeal came through. Now there can be, I presume, another appeal, maybe through CAS or something at this point, so it's not done and dusted just yet. But this is the new golden boy of athletics, and it would be an awful shame if he weren't allowed to run in the World Championships, wouldn't it? So they've got him.
All right. As Ireland prepare for the final Guinness Series clash against Wales in the Aviva Stadium, official partner Dove Men Plus Care is giving you and a friend the chance to be part of the captain's run. You can join the IRFU kitman John Moore as he prepares the dressing room for the Irish rugby team ahead of their final training session before the big game. It's with thanks to Dove Men Plus Care. The winner will also receive a pair of tickets to see Ireland take on Wales at the Aviva Stadium the following day. So to be with a chance of winning, share the show wherever you're watching or listening to OTB AM this morning. Tell us who scored Ireland's first try against Wales in Cardiff. Use the hashtag #OneToughJob. Who scored Ireland's first try against Wales in Cardiff last weekend? Share the show wherever you're watching or listening to us on OTB AM this morning, and you can use the hashtag #OneToughJob. It is 10 minutes past 8 this morning. We're back talking football with Kenny Cunningham after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
I hear you some wiring needs a fixing, ma'am. The name's Buzz, on account of my work.
No chance.
Not all cowboys ride horses. All safe electric registered electrical contractors must give you a certificate of completion that shows their work meets approved standards. Find one nearby on safeelectric.ie.
The Sport Ireland campus Blanchardstown is the home of Irish sport, not just for our athletes but for you in the community. Check out our amazing offers for families with kids camps, sport academies and birthday parties. Or for adults, why not join our gym with a 50-metre pool? Or your club, school, friends can book one of our world-class indoor or outdoor facilities, including our athletics track, soccer, basketball or badminton courts and many more. Check us out on sportirelandcampus.ie.
OTB AM.
No, the chance to play for Ireland, and he's made many appearances, and he's 6th or 7th in line of highest goal scorers. He's still very much there for him, as it is for Robbie Brady, who, has a rib injury and he can't play. I would have thought, if anybody analyses the players that are in the squad, that the strikers that I picked were all been playing. And I'd actually, David McGoldrick started in the Premier League, Robbo did, he scored in the Premier League. James Collins came up with, well, actually it was Sean Maguire, but he was playing regularly and scoring. Scott Hogan started scoring. Shane just wasn't playing in any games. So my logic is, and the way I want players to play, is they need to be playing.
Working on that then, how concerned are you that Shane Duffy didn't start for Brighton and they're playing a new system now with 3 centre-halves and he was on the bench at the weekend?
It's the first game he's missed, isn't it? I think it's brilliant because he's fit and raring to go for me. Do you honestly believe that because they're playing 3 centre-backs, I tell you what, I'm worried going forward that he might not get back in the team if they're playing really well, and that'll be a travesty for him because he's been brilliant for Brighton. But they're playing a different system, and if the manager thinks that the other 3 are better than him at it, then so be it.
Kenny Cunningham, good morning to you. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good, lads.
So Shane Long is out, and Mick says it's because he's just not getting any game time. But Jeff Hendrick is in, and Jeff Hendrick's not getting any game time either. So is it just that he doesn't really fancy Shane Long, do you think?
No, I don't think it's as simple as that, Jer. I think it's always been a factor I think you look at a multitude of things as a manager when you're putting your kind of squad together. And in terms of who's getting regular kind of first-team football, I think it's a factor, a number of factors, which comes into your thinking when you make a decision. I also think, Jer, like every player is different. In my experience, I always found that maybe some players who haven't had a number of games can cope better than others. Others need that run of games, that bit of match fitness to really sharpen up the games, and others not so much. So I haven't quite heard Mick. I know you rolled the Mick's interview there, but generally speaking, I don't think it's a case of you're not playing, you're not in. I think it's a case of if you're not playing, it's not going to help you, and it's going to come into the decision making. And certainly players who are playing regularly and are really sharp in terms of match fitness will have an edge over others. But I think it's a number of factors which Mick will take into consideration.
Yeah, like, you know, you think famously of how Mick would have helped Jason McAteer through his career when things weren't going well at club level for him. He would have put him in the team, and in fairness, McAteer rewarded him. There's the Holland game, for example. I think that's in the midst of his worst time at Blackburn. It feels a little bit like Shane Long is somebody you want to put in the squad, have a chat with, get to see, say, come on, you're going to be good again, you're going to be great, we've got a long campaign here, we need you to get back in that team. Like, is it not better to have him in than stewing at home, annoyed, watching the game on telly going, what's going on here?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Mick's had a private conversation with Shane over the phone. I'm not too sure, but every one of those spots in the squad, Jerry, is important. I don't think it's a case where, let's kind of bring him in. I'm not going to use him, but, I'll just bring him in as part of it. We'll have a chat, he can train, but he really is not going to play. I mean, got some huge games coming up, and everyone in that squad of 23 may be asked to play their part. So for whatever reason, if things change during the course of the week when the players come together, Mick's got to be confident if he asks any one of those players to step into the team, even albeit for a cameo role for 10-15 minutes, he's got to be sure that those players are right, and he's confident in their ability to come in and make an impact. And probably at the moment, the simple matter is he probably doesn't feel that's the case with Shane. And Mick has got options there. Like, there was a consensus some time ago, Ger, we've no centre forward, where the goal's coming from, we've very little options up front. Well, I'm not as pessimistic as a lot of people now when I look at our kind of front line. David McGoldrick's has been in a reasonably rich vein of form. I know he didn't start the weekend. Callum Robinson, for me, is a player who's really mature and has done over the past kind of 6 months to a year. I'm a huge fan of his, and I'll be very surprised if he doesn't start. I think he's got a wonderful all-round game. In fact, he could be our best all-round forward. He can play anywhere across the front line. And obviously we've got the likes of Troy Parra, Adam Ida kind of banging on the door as well. So Mick's looking at those players in terms of their development as well. So, yeah, I mean, I have been a big fan of Shane over the years in terms of the qualities that he has. But I must admit, I certainly wouldn't be panicking by the fact that he has been left out of the squad. For me, it's not a big issue.
It's interesting that Mick McCarthy talks about the Brighton and Hove Albion system there, Kenny, isn't it? That he kind of uses that as a reason why it doesn't matter that Shane Duffy might not be in this team, because they have their system and we have our system. And I do wonder if that's a little bit of an enlightenment in terms of why he perhaps doesn't fancy Matt Doherty as much as some people think, because Wolves have their system and it's different to the Republic of Ireland system.
Yeah, you're right. It probably comes back to what I've said, Owen, in terms of what Mick kind of computes in when he makes a decision in terms of not only bringing people into the squad, but in terms of if they're actually going to play. And obviously the individual characteristics and the individual qualities, footballing qualities of each player. And it's a decent point that you make, Mac, in terms of playing that wing-back role. We don't play that particular way. I think Matt's just unfortunate, just in terms of the quality that he has in front of him, to be honest with you. I mean, you look at Enda Stevens at the week, and I watched the Sheffield United-Chelsea game. In second half, Enda Stevens was the best player on the pitch, bar none. He was absolutely outstanding. So, yeah, I take your point. The back three as opposed to the back four. Obviously, Graham Power, it's difficult to get inside his head in terms of what he's thinking, why Shane's been left out of the team. But like I said before, I think in terms of leaving players, I always found Mick not so much loyal, but pretty much constant in terms of our team. I remember playing, and if the team was playing well, say September we won, team played well, everybody's solid. Pretty much regardless what happened to those individual players in the intervening period when we came back together, say that was maybe 3-4 weeks, lads, before the next international arrived, maybe you played 3 or 4 league games in between. There was players maybe who wouldn't have played an awful lot of games, maybe didn't play any and came back into the squad. Generally you played. If you put it out there for Mick and you played well, he stuck with you. I think it's a little bit different when the squad goes away and comes back together 3 or 4 months. There's a big gap in between the squad comes back together, and then players haven't played in that intervening period of time. I think that's slightly different. When the games are coming thick and fast, which they will do over the next couple of months, I think by and large, when players come into the team and play well, I think they'll stay in the team. That's why I feel as if the team which plays against Switzerland, bar injury, which will be pretty much a replica of the team. Certainly they played against Georgia, which is probably the most relevant game. Take away the Gibraltar game in between.
Yeah.
I think it'll be pretty much the same, because by and large for me, Mick pretty much sticks with what he trusts, and certainly with players who actually put in performances for him regularly. So for me, it's pretty much the same team. That team hopefully continues to play and perform. But for me, pretty much the same players pick themselves going forward.
The issue about Long, I suppose, is that Jeff Hendrick has played almost no football either. Did get a minutes in the League Cup, which Shane Long didn't. But Jeff Hendrick's going to be in the team. Shane Long's not even in the squad, not even on the bench. Like, I know you're saying Shane Long in and of itself, not that big a deal for you, but it just seems like there's one standard for Jeff Hendrick and there's a different standard for Shane Long. And actually, Mick McCarthy doesn't hold that you need to be playing for your club thing at all, which is what his answer was about Shane Long. For whatever reason, he's decided that he wants to go with the young lad from Luton as opposed to Shane Long. And that's fine, that's your choice as a manager, but don't tell us it's actually about the fact that he's not playing, because Jeff Hendrick's not playing and he's going to be in your team.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but then again, in reality, would you really expect Mick to come out and say, look, Shane's not in the squad, I don't fancy him? Just no. I think that's a little bit disrespectful. You're saying disrespectful not putting Shane in the squad.
Well, it's just not being consistent. Sorry, I should.
Fancy him, never have. I actually think that's a little bit disrespectful to the player. I think he's earned a little bit more respect than that, Shane. So if you're thinking it logically, actually, good managers wouldn't throw that out there. They maybe try and cage a little bit in terms of...
Yeah, but cage in a way that doesn't make you look like a hypocrite.
You've got to see through it. I mean, you're getting a little bit upset there, Jared. I don't know why you are, like, you know what I mean?
Well, because it's not true. It's not the truth. He's not telling us the truth, Kenny. He's like, look, it's really important for me...
What manager stands up in front of the camera tells the truth 100% of the time? They have responsibilities to the dressing room, every single player.
Well, let me ask you what the players think. So, the players hear this, right? That you need to be playing for your team, and Jeff Hendrick starts the game. So they then know Mick's not telling the truth.
The players know it helps. Players aren't idiots. Players know when they're playing regularly for the football clubs in between international games, they're going to strengthen their case for inclusion. Players know if they're not playing regularly for the football clubs, it's going to make it a little bit harder. That's not always the case. And like I said, other players are different. Some players can cope with that and no football. Some players are just more important than others. And at this moment, Jeff Hendrick, for me, and you asked me to tell the truth, is a far more integral part of this team than Shane Long. Is great as Shane Long has been for Ireland over the years. At this moment in time, with Switzerland, the games we have coming forward, Jeff Hendrick is a key integral part of this team. For me, Jeff plays. He turns up and physically he's fit, regardless of many games he's played for the start of the season. He's the first name on my team sheet, regardless. He's got no minutes under his belt this season. He's that important to us.
That's fair enough. And that's, like, I know Mick obviously not going to say that, but, like, hostage is just a fortune for other players, like, and being consistent in your approach. Sure, everybody understands there's a hierarchy, that's fair enough. I should have pointed out, sorry, James Collins is 28 as well. It's not like he's coming up from Stephen Kenny's under-21 squad either.
I think the kind of age thing, like with Shane, maybe is overplayed a little bit. Again, I think that comes into it. The age is such an experienced player. If maybe there's a lack of experience within the squad, if you're going into these key games and you're looking around the squad, think, it's a very young squad, lads who haven't been down the road, it's not the most battle-hardened of teams. I think then you look at Shane Long in terms of whether you bring him into the squad or not and think, you know what, I'm going to bring Shane in. His experience, maybe his bit of calmness, younger players will look up to him. But again, I don't think that's a fact. There's enough experience around the squad without Shane there. I don't think that's an experience. That's an argument for bringing him in. I certainly wouldn't say the argument for, look, he's been a great player for us. He's great to have around him. Sure he is, Shane. He strikes me as very good in his dressing room amongst the players. Very good team player as well. But even that, I don't think is a strong enough reason to bring him into the squad. It's tough on Shane. He's been great for us. I wouldn't say it's the end of his international career. Mick said it there. Get back playing, get minutes under your belt. That'll strengthen your claim, and I think it will. But yeah, I think it is probably fair to say, Jared, going forward, and when you read between the lines with Mick, you always have to with managers. Still, I feel as if he looks at McGoldrick, Sean McGuire, and Callum Robinson for me is a player who's going to come in, and when he comes into the team, for me, he's going to stay in the team, and he might be our number 9 going forward. Callum Robinson, he may play in a wide area against Switzerland this week, but for me going forward, like I say, for me, he's the most talented striker, probably number 9 that we have in the squad. So for me, I'm actually a little bit excited about seeing him starting the game against Switzerland midweek. And the issues around Sheahan for me are like very minor, and I wouldn't say trivial, but I really don't think it's the most important issue going forward, certainly over the next couple of days.
There's obviously been a fallout in the Swiss camp, Kenny, between the manager and Xherdan Shaqiri. How much hope does that give you ahead of Thursday night?
Is it a given that he's not going to play? Eoin, has he travelled with the squad?
No.
Yeah, he said that. Yeah, basically he's not travelled. He said that the relationship, the manager himself has said the relationship could be better.
Yeah. Well, again, you're talking about not speaking the truth. Well, there's a player not speaking the truth, because we can all read between the lines there in terms of what the player's saying. He should really be coming out and saying, I can't stand the manager. You know, me and him, I can't stand to see the side of him. That's basically what it sounds like. You don't walk away from international football and your teammates and the player that he has been because we don't quite get on. I mean, that's always been the case, players, managers. So I think it is a help. You could argue the opposite, Owen, in terms of, pull the whole squad together, kind of siege mentality, but he's been a key player for them. We all know about him. I don't have to tell you about his individual qualities. Very clever operator. He's a match winner, free kick specialist, the whole shebang. So I think that actually does go in their favour. They're a very well organised side. Yeah, difficult to beat. But I'm quietly optimistic, like I said, when I look at their squad, and I like what I've seen under Mick during the time he's been there. I like the body language of the players. A little bit concerned obviously against Denmark, a little bit open, a little bit loose defensively in terms of maybe Denmark opened us up, and Switzerland will play the same in terms of walking players into the pockets and a little clever combination play. So we'll have to be ready for that, and we'll have to defend a little bit better collectively than we did against Denmark. But I certainly think we have players in forward areas of the pitch, the likes of James McLean, Callum Robinson in particular, Callum O'Dowd I'd mentioned as well, his pace off the bench. Ronan Course, I'm a big fan as well, and Judge. I mean, I'm rattling players off here. I'm getting excited talking about these players. These players, individual players, have real individual quality for me, so I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, we'll preview the game in a bit more detail before kick-off. Kenny, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Nice one, lads.
Kenny Cunningham giving us some thoughts on a little bit of the fallout from yesterday's press conference. Obviously, what are we, two days out from proper full preview of the game, a game you can hear live on the Off The Ball Show on News Talk. Now, Cian Tracey is going to join us in studio next as we go through the big calls in the Irish Rugby squad. First, here's Keith Wood talking about the residency rules on Monday Night Rugby. We have asked whether Ireland should elect to only pick homegrown players.
You look at where the game has gone at the present moment in time. You want every single team playing under the same rules. So we can't just suddenly say we're not and suddenly take 3, 4, 5 or 10 players out of our system that are there by the laws of the game, and they're in each and every other game that we're playing against.
And I'm very sorry to interrupt, and please do continue. By leaving out Simon Zebo, we're not playing by the same rules as other countries.
No, I know that, but it's a different conversation. It's a choice. But it's a choice to stop players leaving Ireland. There is a rationale behind it. Mm-hmm. Whether we like it or don't like it, personally, I'd still like to see Simon Zebo involved in Irish rugby, but I understand the rationale behind it, because it is to try and stem the flow of players leaving Ireland shores and to try and have as many as we can. That's it. So if the World Rugby game is, as it stands, 3 years for residency, it'll be 5 years in 2020. We had this discussion 2 or 3 years ago, Joe. I think it was with you or with Joe Gilroy. And it was the idea of whether you could have it on a passport holders basis, or what was the rationale with it. World Rugby at that time decided to push it out to 5 years, which makes it much, much harder to have project players. And I think that will make a significant change. But the change has happened. It's just been delayed until 2020 because of the people that were already in the system.
Yeah, Cian Tracey is with us to talk about the Ireland squad. The botched announcement of the Ireland squad yesterday. Did we get to the bottom of what the hell they were thinking trying to postpone it for a week in the first place?
We'll probably never know. It was good fun though. How they thought it was going to keep under wraps till Sunday after telling the players last Sunday was just beyond me. But I suppose when you look at the other unions, the way they've announced it with big fancy videos like the English and the Welsh, it was really cool how they did it. And you get a graphic from the Irish management, and even saw there was a couple of Japanese native speakers that were saying there was typos all over it. So that just shows you how quickly they've had to put it together. But yeah, look, it's out there. I suppose it probably helps preparation for this week, because to think that Joe Schmidt's going to do media on Thursday, if he didn't think that he was going to be asked about the squad as opposed to the game, of course he was, and I guess now there's kind of less to be asked.
A point from Digger. Apologies if I've already covered, but for argument's sake, let's pretend Klein was born and bred here. Isn't Toner a better player anyway? I wonder who's actually the better player. Is Devin Toner not more valuable? I think some of the annoyance here is not because he's a project player who is taking the place. It's because it's a project player who we don't really rate that highly.
But I think it's a bit unfair. I remember I was in with you guys after the Italy game, and I was saying that I thought Klein had been nailed on. When you think about how Joe Schmidt looks at his squads with locks, he wants a tight head lock, and I know like this phrase has kind of come into everyone's language in the last couple of years, but if you look back through, there's a reason why he's picked Quinn Roux. Quinn Roux was there, and like he became a lightning rod for this, as I suppose every project player who comes in becomes the latest one. Jean Klein is that now.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, because I spoke to Quinn Roux about this, that affected him as well. Like he felt like he got such a raw deal. And during the Six Nations, they released stats to the media that I guess are available to all coaches, and you could see that Quinn Roux was actually performing the role that Joe Schmidt wanted him to perform. Now, Jean Klein is seen as an upgrade on that. Devin Toner and Jean Klein are not the same type of lock. That's where this comes down.
They're totally different type of locks.
They're different type of locks. So before James Ryan kind of burst onto the scene, Devin Toner was playing tight head lock, and that's fine. Like it was going fine. There was never a problem with the scrum. But I feel like Joe Schmidt is looking at this as the Springboks are coming down the line, and he wants power in that scrum. Now, whether Jean Klein will feature, that's a different story. But it's actually Tadhg Byrne is the one I think who's got in there. It's not necessarily. Obviously, Klein has benefited from Toner not being in, but they're not necessarily going head-to-head for a place. After the Italy game, when I was saying that I felt Klein would get in, it was at the expense of Tadhg Byrne. I didn't think that it would be Toner that would be dropped. So when you think of the four locks that are in the squad now, your starting pair are going to be James Ryan and Ian Henderson. Behind James Ryan, it's going to be Jean Klein.
Henderson is the tight head.
No, James Ryan is the tight head in that. So it's similar to what Paul O'Connell did. Your tight head is normally a bigger, bulkier player, but I guess when you're a freak of an athlete like James Ryan is, like Paul O'Connell was, they're able to do both. And it's Tadhg Byrne covering behind Ian Henderson. So it's actually Byrne who has gotten in there, if you know what I mean, instead of Toner. Now, that's not to say that Klein hasn't benefited from it, but they weren't necessarily in direct competition.
Okay.
Because that was the thing that definitely struck me when he did mention he put the emphasis on tight head. This was not just a battle of second rows, full stop. And it seems that, like I was saying earlier on, for Russia and Samoa, he's straight away seeing Byrne and Klein, and he's mentioned their relationship in Munster as well.
That's exactly what it is. And like I don't know what goes on in a scrum. I mean, I'm not going to pretend I do, but like from listening to what everyone says, like this is very important, and the evidence suggests that Schmidt puts huge value in that. And this is going to run on and on like for a couple of weeks, and even until Jean Klein plays, I think probably in the World Cup. But this isn't a decision that Joe Schmidt woke up on Sunday morning and said, actually, you know what, I fancy Jean Klein. The man obsesses over the smallest detail. So whatever the casual fan and like you or me, whatever think about it, this has been like, you know, to the finest detail this decision has been made. Now we can totally argue Devin Toner's merits for the line out and all that. I don't think that's questionable, but he has looked off the pace since he's come back from the injury. He got the ankle injury during the Six Nations. He didn't feature at all, and then he got the knee injury against Munster. He hasn't looked up to the pace, and like I know Brian O'Driscoll and Ronan O'Gara were saying it when they were in with you guys a couple of weeks ago, that so much stock gets put on training, and like if Toner is looking that sluggish in training, how are you supposed to?
That was like definitely the interesting. They were definitely saying we see the games, they're one small piece of.
Klein has apparently gone in there and fit in really well, and you know we always call for Joe Schmidt to be a little bit more, you know, free in his selections. He's doing it here, and you know people are jumping on, you know, Klein's case, and I do feel sorry for him because like the project player rule, okay, it's gone to 5 years and it's never sat well with me either, but this is a guy who's playing by the rules. Like I mentioned, Quinn Roux, it was similar, and he came in and he got, you know.
Tell us about that, will you? Because you said that you talked to him and he said it had an impact. I mean, I actually thought he got an okay time of it, really. His big games happened on tour. right? When he got the big...
But even during the Six Nations he played, and like people were like, why is this guy playing? And like it was just that, you know, like I said, the stats that became available to us were really eye-opening, because you could see what these guys are doing, and it's why Joe Schmidt picks them. And it's the unglamorous stuff, like the amount of rucks you've hit, the speed at which you've got there, like where you're the first man there, where you're the second man there, the real boring stuff that no one really cares about, but it's so important to generate quick ball, and that's why he's there. Sean Klein was seen as an upgrade to Quinn Roux. But yeah, Quinn Roux said that, you know, like he moved over here with his wife, bit different to Sean Klein, he moved over here on his own. You know, they've set up shop here in Galway. Like, I mean, he bought into the whole thing. Sean Klein said it as well. When he was first, like, and make no mistake about it, when the IRFU went to Sean Klein, it was with a view to feature in the World Cup for this exact reason. They're the rules, they're playing by the rules, but he has 100% bought into this over here. It's not like a Ben Teo situation where he's like, I'll come over, but if the Springboks, you know, get back onto me, while he was a good bit down the pecking order, that was never on the cards. He'd said that, you know, this is what he wanted to do. So yeah, like Klein is looked at as an upgrade to Quinn Roux, and this is what Joe Schmidt wants with his lock. So
it is the IRFU who go. It wasn't Munster who make those appearances.
No.
It's David Nisafora,
who are looking through the Irish squad and say, in 4 years' time, 3 years' time, where are we short here? So I mean, you look at, they went and got like Reece Marshall, like, and you look at the James Lowe. And like, it's something I actually spoke to CJ Stander about just at Christmas as well, and he was saying the amount of abuse that he got, and it was kind of with a view to Klein coming into the squad, and he was like, he's going to get the same as what I got now, because it seems like the next one off the block just gets the same treatment, and they're playing by the rules. So like this time next year, James Lowe is certainly going to play for Ireland without question. Will he get the same sort of treatment? But he's a flashier player, so people can see what he does. He beats players, he scores tries for fun, he's great to watch. He's not Sean Klein who's hitting rucks, so a little bit of double standards. And like, this is
I felt Klein went out of the game against Leinster that time. He played a brilliant first half, but then Leinster started to dominate, and the stuff that you would expect your enforcer to be enforcing
100%
didn't happen.
100%, and that's where I think you can have an actual debate about his merits on, has he actually shown enough form? Because like I said, after the Italy game, I thought he was a shoo-in, but that was before Twickenham happened, and while everyone was particularly bad, he was anonymous against, you know, really powerful locks.
Yeah, so the one thing you're getting into the team to do, you're not capable to, and exactly. I think that's the bit that like
rankles with people.
Changes this from, I think if James Lowe gets in the team, everybody's going to see. If Tyler Blaindahl was in the team, he'd be an out half, and everybody would go, okay, like, you're clearly better than whoever you've beaten out to get there, because obviously now he'd need to be in Munster's team for a long time and playing really well. But with this, maybe because it is so nuanced, and because people don't really understand the difference between the tight head and the loose head locks. Like, the other thing is, why are we turning James Ryan into that player when we want him to be calling our lineouts? Aren't you more exhausted if you're playing that role?
But it's like, it goes back to what I said. I mean, Paul O'Connell did it to huge effect, and I think they just see him in that sort of Paul O'Connell mode. But just on Klein, like, it was his second game at this level, you know, and I think we have to cut him some slack. He was the fall guy for a lot of what went wrong, but Ian Henderson was the one calling that line out. Now, that's another thing, he's not a line out jumper because he's so big and heavy, so it limits what you can do within the line out. But it's like you said, Eoin, he's been looked at for the Samoa game. And also, you know, so much was made of Felix Jones going into the Springbok setup. You've got a South African here who knows, you know, South Africa quite well, and you saw it in Joe Schmidt's reaction last week when he was asked about the Felix Jones thing. South Africa is playing on his mind hugely, and like, I wouldn't be surprised if South Africa end up beating the All Blacks in the first game and Ireland end up playing the All Blacks, but you can tell he's already having sleepless nights about this, and I think that's why your Rhys Ruddock as well, it's clear that he wants a power game in Japan, and like I said, we've criticised him in the past for being too rigid in what he picks, and he goes away from it now, and I think it's a really exciting squad. Like, that's the thing that I think has gotten lost in all this. We tend to focus on the guys who weren't there, and I was guilty of it in today's paper, you know, Will Addison, but when you look at that 31 squad, that is a pretty good squad.
I'm delighted that Conway's going. I think that he's far too old to be considered a World Cup bolter, far too seasoned at this stage, but like, could actually be a World Cup bolter, somebody who by the end of the group stages is in our team on choice, on merit, and in any one of a number of positions.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to Joe Schmidt picking on form. I mean, I think Conway was the one who kind of clouded the picture a little bit for that back three, because I think, like he said yesterday, Addison's comeback sort of came too late. But I think if Addison had got another game under his belt, he could well have been that sort of auxiliary. He can play in the centre, out half and the back three. But Conway's form was too good to ignore. He was brilliant for Munster last season. I know we haven't really seen him much at full back, but I think he'd be a quality option there as well. So there's a lot to be excited about. But I suppose you're almost recency biased that, like, I thought Addison did so well at the weekend, and like back during the season, I know he was playing centre most of the time for Ulster, but I thought he was a genuine contender, that he could have rivaled Rob Kearney to be Ireland's full back at this World Cup. And I think what went against him, obviously he'd only played 2 games all year for Ulster, both in January, the Champions Cup, before he got the back injury in Ireland training. When you have doubts over Carberry, Earl, Sexton, like Henshaw hasn't played, it's a lot of backs with very little game time. And I think if you were to throw Addison in there as well, it was just a risk that he wasn't worth taking. But for me, I think he just adds so much value, and I'm surprised he didn't kind of try and find a way. But I'm not sure how you do it. I think Chris Farrell will probably be breathing a sigh of relief, but it goes back to the power game.
Yeah, exactly. And South Africa. The Addison thing and the John Klein thing are interesting to look at in tandem, because John Klein, when he comes in, it's like the 3-year residency rule. It was off to a T. This is a Joe Schmidt guy who wanted him in his Joe Schmidt squad for this year's World Cup. But the same could go for Will Addison. By all accounts, Schmidt was quite persuasive when it came to telling him to come play for Ulster, because he's within the country and he will be available for Ireland. Yeah,
it goes back to my earlier point. I think less of a deal is made with the flashy backs, because Addison, is such a skillful runner. He's unbelievably calm on the ball, and people can see what he's doing. And then I think when you get guys like Jean Klein and Quinn Roux, people are like, oh my God, what is this guy actually doing here? But it's incredibly harsh on Devin Toner. But if we're saying that John Klein wasn't great in that Twickenham game, I'm not sure what we've seen from Devin Toner in this pre-season either that would suggest that he should have been a shoo-in, apart from the security that he gives you in the line-out. But this has been on the cards for a while. Even in the last few weeks, it's been mentioned to me, and to be honest, I didn't really take much notice. I was like, there's no way that Devin Toner is not going to the World Cup. And then Sunday evening, the rumours are starting to get stronger, and you're like, whoa, this could actually happen. But the preferred second row partnership has been Henderson and Ryan. And it seems like it's obviously such a strange time to do it, because after the last World Cup, when Paul O'Connell retired, it was like a natural evolution after the World Cup cycle. Now you have a guy like Ian Henderson, who for me is still trying to find his best form. 4 years ago you would have said this World Cup is made for Ian Henderson. He's going to be like a world star. He's kind of struggled for a bit of form, and now you're putting him into a massive situation where you're saying, okay, you're now our main line-out caller.
I know, James Ryan's going to call the line-outs, no?
No, Ian Henderson will be the line-out caller.
What?
Yeah. You're asking James Ryan to do too much then.
Well, then put him in the team alongside somebody else, no?
No, Henderson is a line-out caller.
But he called the line-out terribly.
Yeah, but he did it again against Wales, and it was interesting. Joe Schmidt said it was going to be a shared responsibility, but it ended up being Henderson.
Just Henderson?
Yeah, it would look like to me it was Henderson calling the line-out.
It's not Peter Manny.
No, Peter Manny would have his say as well, but Henderson is going to be Ireland's line-out caller at the World Cup, which again is a big responsibility for him. Yeah. But this is what they want from him. They're taking him out of his comfort zone, but you'd wonder, is it the right time to be doing it? And even after the Twickenham debacle, there was a massive meeting on the Sunday with the players. There was no organised team meeting. Who is the man leading that? It's Devin Toner. So it's just, I don't know how it will mess with the guys like Peter O'Mahony, Henderson, the 3 hookers who, let's be fair, the 3 hookers, they all have their issues with throwing. Yeah. And when you don't have that guy there, and even in the opposition, when they don't see an almost 7-foot lock there, it changes the dynamic of Ireland's line-out. You're still shocked about Henderson, are you?
Yeah, I thought that was like a one-off that they were, and it had failed so spectacularly. They're like, well, it was like Robbie Henshaw playing full back.
James Ryan has done it bits and pieces. I think his first game that he did it was he did it against Wales in the Six Nations, and then he did it for Leinster against Toulouse. But calling a line out again, it's only something I know about from talking to people who've actually done it, like if you're Malcolm Kelly, Paul O'Connell. It takes years to actually perfect it, But Henderson has been doing it for the last couple of years, along with Toner. So he's been learning from Toner for when this moment arrives. But yeah, Henderson is your man for calling your line outs now, which is huge pressure on him because he needs to find it.
Does Henderson not have the bug to play tight headlock?
For me, Henderson has actually looked like he's slimmed down a lot. I don't know if you guys have noticed it. He looks much more lean, and I would imagine that's with a view to, because remember when he first broke on the scene, he was this back row and he was just all this powerful guy. It seems like he's been put on a different programme now where he is on the loose head, and I think that's where they see him because James Ryan is seen as the tight head.
Right, and so James Ryan won't end up being our line-out caller as well, or is that like a down the line?
If it goes, if it's a disaster again, they have to change it, but I think we're probably going to see the two of them starting this weekend again with Henderson against a much better Welsh line-out.
And why is it not a back row calling it, who actually is kind of at the back of the line-out watching everything happen, as opposed to somebody in the middle of it going, what's happening behind me there? Okay, I'm just going to call it to myself at the front because I don't know what the hell's going back there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, Peter O'Mahony doesn't call it at Munster either. Tyke Byrne came in for his first season and he called the line-out, so he's another guy who's actually probably got more experience, because Henderson does it at Ulster as well. But I'm not sure why a backer doesn't do it, but you think like a line-out technician like O'Mahony might be good at it, but the fact he doesn't do it for Munster either, it's Tyke Byrne. So I guess even having Tyke Byrne there is another option, but it's been like, he's an interesting case as well, because it looked to me for all the world like he was seen as a back row, and now all of a sudden he's named as a lock, even though he hasn't played as a lock in pre-season. So it's a lot of muddled thinking, but I'm sure there is a plan. It hasn't just happened.
Yeah, well, that seems like it's the squad is so small at 31 that if you have that versatility, that you're going to be able to play those. I mean, you hope that you don't have to use them in that position in the big games, but if you do, you might be able to survive.
It does seem that he has thought about the very worst case situation and all of that. He's thinking like, who would be our third or fourth choice wing, for example. Like, I mean, the idea of Gary Ringrose out there or Joey Carberry playing 9 or whatever it may be, that it seems that he's kind of gone through every single potential eventuality based on what happened in 2015 and come up with this squad to answer this. This is not just about next man up. This is about third or fourth man up.
Exactly. He's still scarred from that Argentina game and the players he was missing. But that's what, like I was saying, like there's a lot to like about this squad, and naturally we focus on the guys who are missing. But like Jerry, you mentioned Andrew Conway. Here's a guy who's playing out of his skin. He's getting picked on form. Jordan Larmour, Chris Farrell. Like, there's a lot of guys who can change up a game in this squad. And you know, the thing is, by the time we get to hopefully a quarter final, there's going to be a lot of different players in that squad. It's just natural. Even after this weekend, you look at Wales coming, you know, your Will Addison could be straight, Toner could be straight back, and you just don't know. So like, I think there's a lot to like about the squad, and that kind of gets lost in the sort of the panic of, oh no, Devon Toner's gone.
The Argentina game, people talk a lot about the players we were missing, but we lost that game because our defensive structure wasn't sound. Like, they killed us. And it's, I mean, it might have been a great excuse for us, but actually we might have lost that game anyway, even if everybody had been fully fit. So is our defensive structure back after last weekend?
I don't think you can read too much into last weekend. Like, it was a Welsh B team with a lot of Dragons players. So, you know, let's call it spade a spade. Yeah, I think there's still question marks over the defence. I think Ireland get caught narrow far too often. I think attacking teams have figured out how to play against the Andy Farrell, and I'm not sure if have they been moving with the times as well. But even someone like Ringrose has kind of been off colour. But I think when you have Sexton and Henshaw back in that team, apart from the fact that they're just strong defenders, they're strong communicators, and I think that will make a huge difference to guys, you know, Sexton, and making sure that guys are fanning out the line, because you saw it against England. Like, I mean, Stockdale biting in, but that doesn't come from just Jacob Stockdale, it's the guys inside him, and you can see how bunched, like the likes of Bundyaki and Gary Ringrose, who are both very quiet players apparently by all accounts. So I think a Henshaw or a Sexton will make a big difference to that.
A couple of points that Matt Williams made this morning. I think maybe you've answered one of them about the internal team dynamics for having John Klein. You're making the point earlier on, John Klein seems to have settled in quite well with the squad, so that's not going to be a huge issue for the team we're going. Because if you're on the plane, you're on the plane, and you feel like you're going out there to win. You're not lamenting somebody not being with you. Exactly,
and I think when you're inside in the camp, and like we said, they can see the training, and these guys know what your Jean Klein brings, and I think they can appreciate that, because, you know, if you're doing the dirty work that you don't want to be doing, he's doing it for you. I think players can appreciate that, and that's probably why he has bought into it as well.
The other point was that he said he talked to a member of the Irish team. He doesn't say if it's a playing member or if it's a backroom member, but he told me that Dev was on the outside. I couldn't believe it. When I asked why, I was answered with a shrug of the shoulders. They want him out. Now, maybe that's right, and it kind of tallies a little bit with what you were saying, that they wanted somebody who was going to be an upgrade on him in that role. They felt that Quinn Roux wasn't. They'd tried him. Toner's ahead of him, but they felt that maybe John Klein could be.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes back to the point, but Toner has struggled this season. I think And the thing about him, he's a bit like Jamie Heaslip in that he had never really had any injuries, and now all of a sudden he's got an injury and it's really slowed him down. But I think if you'd seen Toner come back and he'd played out of his skin, I don't think this would have been as much of a debate. But I think when you're picking a guy to do a certain role and he's looking off the pace, like when he came off the bench last week, you know, he was slow to get things, and even he was probably like a bit fortunate that he wasn't sighted either, you know. And these kind of things are the things that would play on Joe Schmidt's mind, I think, as well, that if you're not kind of ready up there, you're actually going to be ready when it comes to Japan. So yeah, it's really unfortunate for him to be dropped at this late stage, because I wouldn't imagine he probably saw it coming. But like I said, there has been whispers behind the scenes that this has been part of the plan, and I guess you have to trust that this is going to be the right plan. But if that line out goes badly against Scotland or even this weekend, the pressure is just going to be enormous.
When he plays with Ryan, obviously Ryan is the tight head lock, but when he plays with Henderson, who's the tight head lock in that instance?
It would be Toner.
It would be Toner,
yeah.
Okay.
So Toner used to do it until Ryan came along. So
and then
it would
he
be
shifted
Toner,
over.
yeah. And yeah, exactly. But since Ryan is coming on, Toner has gone back into the loose. But he could obviously still go back to the tight. But obviously they don't feel like he can do a good enough job there. But Ireland's scrum has never struggled with Devin Toner on the tight. That's kind of the point, I guess.
Yeah. So look, maybe he does make it out there. Who knows? It's 7.5 weeks until the quarter final, and so many players are going to get injured in the meantime, so loads could happen. Just from the way the squad was named, is there anything else? Like Jack Carty obviously managed to play his way in. He got his audition against the Wales B team. Poor Ross Byrne gets his against the England A team. It's like, well, you know, was that all of that behind that, or was there more?
Look, I mean, Ross Byrne wasn't in the Six Nations squad either, so I mean, again, this was obviously Joe Schmidt's plan, you know, that Carty would be the third choice, and it's a great story, I think. I mean, the guy only got capped at 26, he turned 27 at the weekend, very much a late bloomer, and I think he's benefited so much from Andy Friend, I think, coming in, who's just given him that licence to play. And you know, and I think fair play to Joe Schmidt again for picking him, because you know, when he kind of came on the scene during the Six Nations, people were like, there's no way he'll go to the World Cup because he's too fast and loose and he doesn't fit into that game plan, which in fairness Ross Byrne will do what you tell him. Carty could take a chip over the top, you know, he's got to turn the pace, so I think it's exciting. I guess mentioned Rhys Ruddock getting in is pretty big. I think Jordy Murphy will be devastated because, you know, he upped sticks and went to Ulster, and I actually feel very sorry for him because he'd such a brilliant season for Ulster because he was playing open side in number 7, but he hasn't really gotten a chance for Ireland because he's seen as this jack of all trades, and that's harsh enough because he keeps being put at number 8, and number 8 is such a specialised position as well. Even controlling the ball at the base of the scrum is such a, you know, an unheralded skill, and he's been asked to do that despite the fact that he's playing out of his skin in number 7. So I think when he saw O'Brien and Levy were down, he's like, okay, this is my chance. I moved to Ulster. I think it's pretty harsh, but again, Joe Schmidt clearly wants the power. Yeah, I mean, if he hadn't moved, he would have played 7 all year for Leinster, and they would have reached the Champions Cup final, and he would have been showcasing his talents as a 7, right? Well, it's like what happened in Bilbao when he ended up starting in the Champions Cup final, and he wins the Champions Cup, and then he's all of a sudden off to now. I mean, hindsight is great, isn't it? But I think he'll be particularly gutted that he didn't get a chance at 7 to actually show, you know, bring his Ulster form into it. But again, Ruddock has been a captain of the Ireland second team, if that's what you want to call it. And I think for the 2 games that we mentioned, Ruddock will be a shoe-in to captain that, and he's a guy who'll make sure his standards, you know, are kept the same. He's a captain in Leinster as well, so he's hugely respected. So.
Just kind of on a final point then, I know you can't really be planning too far ahead, and we'll talk about it a lot more in the coming weeks, but do you think Joe Schmidt will just basically play 2 B teams or 2 A teams, as they say, for the Russia and Samoa games, so that essentially you have your frontliners off for 2 weeks? Yeah, I think there'll be, pretty much. Or is there a sense that tournament rugby is all about momentum and keeping people on their toes? Yeah, of course there's an element to that, but I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Russia and Samoa, while they'll be big meaty packs, you know, this Irish squad, if you picked a different 15, should be good enough to beat them. Now, it might not be a totally different 15. You might have someone like a James Ryan might play, or you know, a Tyg Furlong might play one of the game against Samoa or something. But yeah, there's enough quality, I think, in this squad to ensure that, you know, you can wrap the likes of Johnny Sexton, Conor Murray, although he'll bring in only two scrum halves, he's going to have to be on the bench, but I think there is enough scope to wrap these guys in cotton wool. And it's an amazing opportunity really to actually have this. Like, you couldn't dream of a better way to go into a World Cup quarter final, assuming we get there. It's like, there's a lot of rugby to play first, don't we, Canyon Chickens? If we get there. We 57 points last week. It was like, we're not getting out of the group. Now you're like, oh, this is perfect. If we get there. Yeah, I mean, come on. The quarter final is the hardest quarter final they'll ever face, right?
But the group is very winnable and it's front loaded. In 2015 it was the opposite. So that last game against France, it was just carnage. We'll all remember it. So now you've got Russia and Samoa at the end. So in an ideal world, Johnny Sexton comes back after having a 2-week break and goes into the quarter-final, and happy days.
Cian, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. We're going to look back at the All-Ireland football final with the former Galway footballer Michael Meehan next. First, here's Billy Joe Padden on last night's Off the Ball talking about Jim Gavin.
Jim Gavin has been flawless throughout his managerial career practically, and in my opinion, he had a really, really bad day at the office yesterday, where in many ways his team stayed in it in spite of his decisions. I think he was very, very slow to move things after Cooper was playing really, really reckless football and got caught out in the end, rightly so. I think that when you're down to 14 men, you've got to empty that bench earlier and bring fresh legs on. It's no surprise that when they only made a substitution on the 52nd minute, that it was the period after that they really started to suffer physically, I felt, and it wasn't until late on, until those subs that came on had some energy in their legs, that they started coming back into the game. And I also find it curious as to why Cormac Costello didn't come in sooner, considering that he has been in good form throughout this season. So I think there are many things there that Dublin will do better the next day that may take the pressure off the players on the field at any given moment.
All right, a reminder as well, as Ireland prepare for their final Guinness Series clash against Wales in the Aviva Stadium, the official partner Dove Men Plus Care is giving you and a friend the chance to be part of the captain's run. You can join the IRFU kitman John Moran as he prepares the dressing room for the Irish Rugby team ahead of their final training session before the big game. And then, of course, Dove Men Plus Care will also give you a pair of tickets to see Ireland take on Wales at the Aviva Stadium the following day. This is a money can't buy experience. To you with a chance to win, share the show wherever you're watching or listening to OTB AM this morning. Tell us who scored Ireland's first try against Wales in Cardiff and use the hashtag #OneToughJob. Now, Michael Meehan is with us this morning to look back and sift through the wreckage of the All-Ireland final draw. Michael, what's your take now, 48 hours out, about whether or not Kerry left this behind them?
Morning, Ger. Yeah, God, there's so much to digest out of it. Having been up there on the day, I haven't got back to seeing anything of it on the telly bar, maybe the Sunday game. So I must sit down and take the time to go through it again, because it was all consuming on the day. It wasn't because of the huge, maybe high quality levels at times, but it was just, the magnitude of it, how high stakes, the game was, and then you have the moments when Cluxton is out marking Tommy Walsh and Kerry are overloading on Dublin's kick-out. So it was so much to take in. It was phenomenal. I'm guessing at this stage, the players are kind of coming back down.
You've got Owen's attention there. He didn't see the Tommy Walsh Cluxton thing.
Yeah, I'd say it's me. I missed, to be quite honest with you, Michael.
Yeah, it was very late on. It was in the period of the game. Maybe Dublin might have been down a point, and I forget, I think it was Kerry were in possession, but they were being pinned quite high up. But yeah, Cluxton had to come out, and I think, in fact, there might have even been another man on the other side of the pitch that he ignored. Now, there obviously was a plan for someone to break back and cover, but just when you see there's so much going on here and there's so much at stake, and the lengths that they're prepared to go to now, that teams are prepared to go to, and then even then you kind of had the line-out jump ready with the two Kerry lads on the line for the last three as well. So I think all that just raises it up, and it's amazing to see as an ex-player and now as a fan, I suppose, to see what's going on. But I think the next few days now it kind of boils down to leaders in the group, probably performance analysis or sports psychologists, to really kind of get a bit of clarity of thought into the players, because the bodies are still recovering. It's going to take a few days for anyone who played 60, 70 minutes. It's going to take a few more days, but it's just getting the mindset right now and getting the clarity as to see where can the improvements be made. I think there's a huge improvement for both sides. Kerry, Kerry left an awful lot behind on the scoreboard, essentially. What I wouldn't have associated with David Clifford was just, a couple of the wides he's kicked. I don't think he'll do that the next day, or the missed cues as well. I don't think he'll do that the next day, because he had the time and space, and he's just super clinical. And he's going to get loads of chances again, irrespective of who is marking him. So there's huge improvements there on the Kerry front. Obviously, Dublin, staying with 15 men is going to help them, looking for bigger performances from some of their mainstays all year as well. So, there's a whole, we nearly need a month kind of to lead into this one to kind of cross off everything.
I think the big takeaway for me was that this Kerry team, they're going to be a real team for the next ages, that what we saw from them last year when they couldn't get out of the Super 8s was actually just not the true reflection of the quality that they have within them, and that they're going to be led by Clifford and O'Shea for the next decade, and it's going to be amazing for us to be able to sit back and watch that and enjoy it.
For sure, yeah. Like we've it's been highlighted for some time now. Sean O'Shea and David Clifford, the two that you've mentioned. They're once in a lifetime players, and they're there and they're together, and they're just phenomenal. And I'm delighted to see them as a GA fan, because they're the type of players. I think I've said this before, that every young fella or girl or boy in the counties across Ireland are going to be looking up to those lads, and they're going to be their inspiration for the next 10, 15 years. And I think that's only a positive on the sport. For Kerry, then, selfishly for them, like they're just they're going to be building a team around those guys, and they have I suppose they have a balance of youth and experience there at the minute, but with all their underage success, like if they could land this title in 2 weeks, that's going to just really bring them storming back into the fold, where they had kind of had slipped and dropped below their standards and everyone else's perceived standards of them in the last couple of years. So they're just going to come storming back, and I suppose with history and everything that's behind them, it's funny this week listening to all the calls to arms from the former great Kerry players, and I suppose the cynic in you could have thought they're just trying to create something out of nothing here, but whether it was that or whether it was that they really believed in the heel of the hunt, I suppose they were proved right in the performance and the way it came about on Sunday. So they're in a really strong position.
But I was kind of thinking what you were saying there, Ger, as well, the last night after the draw. But then part of me kind of disagrees with that as well, just because you talk, Michael, about the fantastic underage teams and kind of nurturing that talent. But I think one of the key components about that we look back at in a couple of years down the line is letting Mark O'Connor go to Australia, because while Jack Barry was very good at times last Sunday, the successor to David Moran is still a bit of a question mark, and I think he's been absolutely unbelievable this year. So I think that's one kind of note of caution for Kerry in such a vital position. They don't exactly have a successor there. One thing I just wanted to ask was kind of, I know it's a while now since we've actually seen Dublin in a replay. It was 2015 in the semi-final against Mayo, 2016 in the final against Mayo. Yeah. What way did they tend to trend for you? How much better did they tend to get second time up?
I think certainly at that stage, they again there was very little between them. And the game that we saw the last day and the game we're likely to see the next day are going to be sort of similar to those Dublin Mayo contests that we had become familiar with. So it's just all on the line, high pressing, just literally teams prepared to go at each other for the 70-80 minutes. We would expect to see something different maybe if a Tyrone or a different type of team got into a final against Dublin or Kerry. So you'd expect, there's huge room for improvement for Dublin. I suppose the one small caveat is just provided that they have that little nugget, the fire is still burning wildly inside them, for this, because it's just maybe getting to a stage now where people are beginning to question, some of the lads who are there and maybe the age profile of some of them, albeit they've been the best players for a long number of time, but are cracks beginning to appear? Even if they're not, it's just are the thoughts of cracks beginning to appear, maybe starting to seep in around the group or some of the players, and if there are, then that's just something where we might just see Dublin not getting to the peak of their performance in the replay that we might expect. Yeah,
look, that age profile thing is definitely something that's going to be a lot of focus on, and who makes the bench the next day is going to be almost as interesting as who actually starts the game. One last thing, there were strong rumours last night from very many well-placed GAA journalists about the Galway job potentially opening up over the next while. What do you think is going to happen here? I suppose it's one of these things, like, it's not a guarantee, but usually there's no smoke without a fire. And I did pick up on whispers at the back of the Hogan stand on Sunday. There was a few Galway people there up for the minor game as well, that something was happening all right, and not too far from what has kind of come out in the last 12 hours, I suppose. So it's looking like that there may be a change coming, and I suppose it's just with everything that's gone on in the county in the last month, with there's extra scrutiny on the Galway County Board at the minute, rightly or wrongly, with no hurling manager in place at the minute, and what happened there. So I suppose maybe if there's something to come, they're trying to bring it about to the public in the best way possible. But if there's rumours out, then something needs to be said, sooner rather than later to
put it to bed one way or the other.
Yeah, one quick question on that. We've seen a Galway club side produce some of the best football that we've watched in recent years.
Yeah.
And we see the style of play that Kerry had to go up against the Dubs and that the Dubs have had for the last number of years. Football's trending that direction. Is there an internal solution where you look at the stuff that's happening in the club scene and go, let's have a little bit of that in the inter-county scene too?
Yeah, perhaps. Definitely, there's probably a huge appetite for that around if a change were to come about. And, there's a couple of key personnel. Now, some of them, I know Declan Bonner was ratified last night. I don't know how the makeup of his backroom team, but like Stephen Rochford is strongly linked to that circuit with Corofin. And he and David Morris were spearheading Corofin for a few years during their successful period. Now it's Kevin O'Brien and David Morris. And I suppose that name, David Morris, might be overly familiar to some of you, but he was heavily involved with the Galway Hurlers for the last couple of years as well in the backroom team. So he brings huge experience and has had success at All-Ireland level there, at inter-county level and club level. So, there's a huge talk around that. And then there's, Porrick Joyce and John Divley took on the under-20s this year, and, they got involved. They won a Connacht. So I know if something was to happen, if news was to break, there's going to be huge clatter around those particular names. It's just funny the way it goes. Like sometimes when you lose a manager, you got to be careful of what you wish for and make sure that whoever comes in to replace, is who is of standard, is up to it, and is even going to raise the standard, because that's just what happens. Teams, if you're reproducing the same level year on year on year, you're going to slip behind the pack, because everyone is looking to improve year on year, and Galway again, we seem to have a little bit of catching up to do to break into the top level. So if there is a change, you got to be going after the biggest and the brightest out there and backing them, because if you're not, I don't think you're giving yourself a fair chance to contest.
Yeah, no, look, you've been great with your time, Michael. I know you've got to go. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Thanks, lads. Bye.
It's Michael Meehan there giving us some thoughts on, really the All-Ireland final, but obviously that Galway news is breaking over the last... It hasn't broken yet, but it looks like the Kevin Walsh era is coming to a close if the informed whispers are to be believed. Now, that could all change. Maybe a deal gets done with the county board and they decide one more trip, one more tour of duty, but there's definitely a lot of talent, managerial talent.
Just about to say it doesn't help Kevin Walsh's case that there are a couple of people hovering around the job that would be loved by Galway fans, that would be very highly respected, and those two people are Porrick Joyce and Stephen Rochford, really. So it's going to be tough to cling on to your job when there is, as you say, not only the trend in the way football is going, but also the way the trend in conversation is going, that this isn't just the thing that's happening in the background. This has been a very vocal thing that's been put out there this year. Like, you look at the Ulster Championship, you look at the better football that's been played there than at perhaps any other point in this decade. People are changing how they think about football, and Galway, while they've been very successful, they've been more successful than they have been, they may need to follow this trend soon. So, you never want to say that the manager needs to change his ways, because I do think that there is a lot of stock in what Kevin Walsh has done and the way he thinks about football. But then again, is it just a minor tweak here or there that they need to perhaps be a bit more offensive to actually get toe-to-toe with the bigger teams? Because they have taken a few big fish. Like, Kerry last year in the Super 8 was a big moment for Kevin Walsh. It's not like they haven't... And that Kerry team isn't a million miles away from this year's Kerry team. They underperformed, for sure.
Well, they put out a weakened team in a home game against Monaghan, and that meant they played Dublin in the semis.
Yeah, and Monaghan beat them. And it seemed that they did have a plan that day against Dublin. They got an early penalty, they missed as well, kind of like the last day, except they just kind of completely fell away entirely. And I just think that they've proved it, and Tyrone have proved it, that there is clearly a way to not beat Dublin.
Yeah.
There is a way to save face against Dublin.
Yeah, but
there is a way to not beat them as well.
You don't save face. You don't in the end.
The legacy isn't great, yeah.
It bites you in the ass. All right, we're going to look back on Sunday's thrilling Electric Ireland minor football final next on OTB AM this morning. Here's the Cork boss, Bobby Dwyer, after his side's extra-time win over Galway.
Joined by a very, very happy Cork banisher, and why wouldn't you? You managed to pull that game out of the fire, even though Galway had it in their hands at least twice.
Well, I think it was a we managed to pull it out of the fire. Look, it was all down to the fortitude and the effort of the lads that were on the field outside there today. We felt we were good enough. We felt we had a good enough plan. We looked to be in trouble with a minute to go, but look, that group never give up. They got a shellacking early on in the year, and they just showed how physically and mentally tough they were to come back, and they fought with their toenails outside there today. So.
Yeah, that's the Cork boss Bobby Dwyer there talking about a absolutely sensational end to that game. I don't know if you saw it, but it was absolutely incredible stuff. Cork minor footballers ended a 19-year drought on Sunday, winning the Electric Ireland Minor Ireland for the first time since the year 2000. In the process, they denied Galway a minor hurling and football double at this level in 2019. The game looked gone from Galway when Galway super sub Niall Cunningham blasted to the net to put Galway 3 points ahead in injury time. It was one of those don't fist the ball over the crossbar moments that should now be taken out and shown as evidence to every forward in the country going, look what this kid does. In the last second of an All-Ireland final, he just roofs it. He's like, all guts, no glory. Boom. The Galway fans are absolutely going wild. The players are going wild. Cork have the ball down and kick it out, sweep the length of the field, and Conor Corbett rounds the keeper and empty net, and you're like, what a finish to bring it to a draw in extra time.
It's sort of it's been a remembered name season for Conor Corbett. I think somebody we're going to see a lot from in the next couple of years, and this Cork team is amazing.
40 seconds into the first period of extra time, they had the ball in the net again. So at that stage, like, Galway were
deflating,
celebrating having won and done the double, to suddenly being goal conceded.
But then Cork went to the ascendancy again, and like I wonder, is that a further? Granted, you can't really base too much on an All-Ireland minor final when you've only got 20 minutes to actually show it, but does that show that perhaps these Cork minors are better conditioned, that they kind of lasted a bit longer? Granted, the early goal kind of kills Galway that much, and there is a lot of freak things that happen, but I just think everything about this Cork team is so impressive. They've come back from a massive defeat early in the Munster Championship.
Hammered them.
And then they managed to narrow that margin quite considerably come the Munster final, where they could have beaten Kerry, came through, absolutely hockeyed Mayo in Croke Park in one of the most impressive minor performances we've seen.
There's a lot of goals in them, and they're going for goal chances throughout the game.
And then when you talk about the way football is actually evolving at the moment, like this Cork team is extremely exciting. It's been a great championship, and Cork really deserving winners after the way they bounced back from all that.
Yeah, Corbett put in a man of the match performance, scored 1-7, and is one of our nominees for the final Footballer of the Week award from Electric Ireland. Our nominees are Conor Corbett from Cork, played a captain's part, scoring a goal and 7 in the All-Ireland final win over Galway, including the equaliser to force extra time. The Cork goalkeeper, Cian O'Leary, made a pair of fine saves to ensure that Galway didn't push further clear. And Tom O'Callaghan, despite defeat, he could hold his head high with his tally of 10 points. 10 points in an All-Ireland final and still losing, doing so much to take the tribesmen to the brink of victory. So you can vote for that. There's 1 day left. It's on the at Electric Ireland Twitter account, and we'll obviously retweet that as well, so you can get it on our social too. Now, we have completed our Electric Ireland Minor Jubilee 15. This is the hurling team crowning our manager. Galway's Matty Murphy won 6 minor All-Irelands as manager from 1992 to 2010. It's an incredible record. It's an incredible team, in fairness. Matty Murphy is the manager. James Fitzpatrick, Joe Canning, Richie Hogan, Cian Lynch, Richie Power, Shane Long in the forwards, Noel McGrath, Ger Farrar in the midfielders, Joseph Cooney, Austin Gleeson, Sean O'Halpine is the half-back line, and that full-back line is sensational. Tommy Walsh, Paddy Marr and Ronan Marr with Don Logue in goals. So we'll be talking with Derek McGrath on Thursday to talk about the Electric Ireland Minor Stars Hurling Team of the Year. That's going to be released on the Electric Ireland channels today around 12 noon, so keep an eye out for that if you want to see who the best 15 players were this year. Right, so it's 12 minutes past 9. Phil Egan's going to be in studio with us next, straight after these.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online, and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts is back at the City West Convention Centre, Dublin, from the 6th to the 12th of October. See 32 of the biggest darting stars on the planet, including world number 1 Michael van Gerwen, former Grand Prix champion Darrell Gurney, plus fan favourite Peter Wright. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.ie and search darts. The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts at City West. Game on.
OTB AM.
Right, some of your comments. Phil, how are you? Good morning to you.
Very well, yeah.
Some comments in. Annette Kent said, I've just read Matt Williams' article, controversial. I think that's the first time I've read anything negative about Schmidt. But I'm baffled at Toner's exclusion. I feel that he will be missed in the line-out. It's not like Klein has been pulling up trees. Pascal Jacobs says, bringing on a brand new tight five in the second half is appealing, especially after the scrum penalty at the weekend. I still like the option of a 6-2 split on the bench with Carberry covering the backs. It's a high wire act. Carberry
get injured.
Carberry's your centre, full-back, wing and scrum half replacement. It's like many jobs. I mean, he's good enough to do it, but lads, for me it's ridiculous. We've the overseas rules to keep players and strengthen the domestic game, yet players may not make the squad over a player who only just qualified. Mixed messages from the IRFU.
Is this mixed messages? I think it's pretty clear that the IRFU accept that this is the rule and they will play by this rule and they won't take whatever sort of moral standpoint some people will take on this, and that is their stance. They want to maximise their potential and they feel that going overseas to find specific players is the way to maximise their potential, and they don't care what that means for potentially people like Devon Toner or kind of Alton Delan perhaps getting axed a little bit early and stuff like that.
Simon Zebo.
Yeah, I don't think it's mixed messages at all. I think it's pretty clear the way the IRFU think.
We don't really care where you were born. Yeah. People complain that Joe is too loyal and won't make big decisions. Well, here's your big selection, lads. I'm delighted with the squad, says Darren Downey. So, and Aaron Byrne says, good point made off the ball. Too many slower, older players that don't have that explosive and dynamic game. Best and Toner to name two. Great scrum and line-out experts, but others offer more around the park. Can't win a World Cup with two players not at that level in the loose.
Well, the best thing is interesting as well, because I think the Devon Toner decision showed us that Joe Schmidt still has an unbelievably ruthless streak and he doesn't really care about being loyal. He's mentioned it himself. He coached Devon for 10 years and he accepted that the human inside him felt it to be a very difficult decision. So Rory Best is not there because of some sort of nebulous leadership ability that he has. He's there because
he
thinks he's at least one of the best two hookers, best three hookers that Ireland have to offer at the moment.
Tana Nui has been in touch and says he's an All Black supporter. It's the World Cup, guys, not the warm-up cup. Have faith. Ireland are too good not to turn up. There's a bit of perspective from overseas.
Yeah, like I definitely, I'm sure we're not getting carried away with the Welsh results at the weekend, and maybe we did get a little bit carried away the previous weekend, probably because it was England, because we didn't actually expect the performance to be that bad. But the reason why we can't get carried away with the Welsh performance is that it really does resemble a warm-up match. Like, it's not Wales' first team by any stretch of the imagination, whereas England showed us the standard at which the other top-tier nations are at right now.
Huge international audience listening to us this morning. I'm going to just get to these very quickly. Thomas Dignan says, morning from Boston, lads. Ireland 10-1. Worth a tenner, surely? Not sure at this stage.
You'd be better off like going for a complete shot in the dark against something like France at 25-1 each way.
No, neither of those are good bets. No, that's my take on that one. PJ Dowling, hey lads, I'm from Carlow but living in Florida. It's 4 a.m. here right now, listening in, and thank you for the great coverage and making it available to keep in touch with the Irish sports. I wonder what you're doing at 4 a.m, PJ. I hope it's up from the night out as opposed to getting up to go to work. Hello Liquor says, hello. Listening in here from Sydney at 4:30 p.m. every day. Lifts our afternoons. Keep it going. Hello Quinny. Hashtag. Quinny's not here today, but we'll pass it on. Same in Geelong. Geelong? Geelong.
Oh, yeah.
Nodding his head there like a nod dog. Yeah, Geelong. Yeah, Geelong.
Geelong, yeah.
All right. Have you been?
No, I just know the
team.
AFL team, yeah.
Mark O'Connor.
Right. There you go. How are you?
Good, yeah. I'm going to start with the Republic of Ireland women's team because they start their European Championship qualifying campaign tonight. Still no permanent replacement for Colin Bell, so Tom O'Connor is going to take charge for their opening Group I qualifier against Montenegro. Now, Montenegro were beaten 10-0 by Germany over the weekend, and Greece and Ukraine are also in the group. Ireland, remember, never qualified for a major tournament. Ireland captain Katie McCabe says they can't control what happens off the pitch, so all the focus is on getting the 3 points tonight.
Obviously we were gutted to see Colin go, but as you said, Tom's come in and I've worked with him for the last, for as long as 5-6 years now, and he's done a terrific job since he's taken over as caretaker. And for us as players, all our focus is on is getting the job on the pitch. And obviously we can't control who comes in as manager. We've every trust in the FAI that they pick the right candidate to do that. So our job is to literally just go out and get the 3 points now on Tuesday.
Yeah, that game at Tallaght Stadium kicks off at 7:30. Still tickets available. It's going to be on TV as well. On Thursday night, Mick McCarthy's Republic of Ireland side welcomed Switzerland to the Aviva Stadium, looking to maintain their unbeaten start to their Euro 2020 qualifying campaign. We know now that Liverpool's Xherdan Shaqiri won't be available for the Swiss. He's opted out of this game, and Mick McCarthy says it doesn't make the job any easier, but it certainly is one less problem to worry about.
If you're going to analyse a game and try and counteract Shaqiri, I think he's pretty difficult to do that, because he can drift out of the games, and then he's got that wanderlust, that wonderful... He wanders about the pitch and suddenly all he does, he explodes and he does something magnificent. Well, so maybe it'll be easier to... Not suggesting for 1 minute the player that plays is any less than him, but I don't think he'll be the same that does that.
Dundalk have a 7-point lead at the top of the SSE Electricity League Premier Division following a 2-0 win away to Sligo Rovers last night, and they still have a game in hand over second place Shamrock Rovers. Dane Massey and Andy Boyle with the goals for Vinnie Perth's side. Not a great start for Neil Fenn as Cork City manager, beaten by Sligo Rovers last Friday. It's now 2 defeats from 2. Waterford scored twice in the final 10 minutes. They came from a goal down to win 2-1 at Turner's Cross, and after the game Fenn was particularly unimpressed by their defence since he's come in. They've conceded 6 goals in 2 games, and he's pretty critical of what's going on so far.
And fed up talking about positivity.
Yeah.
It's 2 games.
He wanted to concentrate on the negative of conceding those 6 goals. So
yeah, quite a turnover in playing staff this summer, you would expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Celtic have signed Republic of Ireland under-21 defender Leo Connor on a 4-year deal from Manchester United. Never played a senior game for United, but I suppose what's interesting here is O'Connor is the latest underage Irish player to join Celtic. You've got Luke O'Connell there. More recently, Jonathan Afolabi is signed, and they've got Barry Coffey as well. So the future of Irish football is in Celtic's hands, the way things are going. And Sheffield United as well in the Premier League.
Yeah. And Stephen Kenny's.
A few other transfers that went through because the transfer deadline in Europe closed yesterday. PSG have signed Mauro Icardi on loan from Inter Milan. He's agreed a 2-year contract extension with the Italian club before leaving. So the PSG have the option to make the deal permanent for a reported fee of around £60 million. Keylor Navas also signed for PSG on loan from Real Madrid. Former Manchester United striker Radamel Falcao, where do you think he went? I said this in the office yesterday. Neil Tracey was sitting beside me and said, which Turkish club has he signed for?
Fenerbahce.
No, he went to Galatasaray. He's joined on a free transfer. They've also brought in Florian Andoni from Brighton and Southampton midfielder Mario Lemina. Seamus McEnany is back as manager of the Monaghan Senior Footballers. Takes over from Malachy O'Rourke.
Can we just go back to PSG for a minute?
Yeah, no worries.
So the big transfer that didn't happen, Neymar's still there.
Yeah, still there.
So their attacking options are
so star-studded.
Icardi, Neymar, Mbappe, Cavani. There's 2 or 3 more.
You've got Draxler there as well.
If Di Maria, who plays a more withdrawn role, but
I just what are we giving it? 5 days, 5 weeks before Mauro Icardi and Neymar get into fisticuffs or something like that. 2 very strong personalities. I would say poisonous personalities almost.
Could be Wanda. Wanda might have something to say about Neymar's attitude.
Yeah.
Icardi's agent and wife.
She's been a very controversial figure, especially within the Argentinian national team.
Yeah.
Not very well liked, and I'd say it's certainly if you're looking for a soap opera, if that's what Paris Saint-Germain represent in the footballing world, then the soap opera has just got a hell of a lot better because Mauro Icardi's gone there. In terms of footballing ability, I think they were just fine with the options they had.
Yeah, also with Neymar, what does Neymar do? Ideally what he does is he comes in, puts the head down and works hard and says, I'll try my best and maybe in January this deal might happen. But it's Neymar. That's not going to happen. He's probably going to turn up 1 week, play well, the next week not so well.
Yeah.
Try and take a free kick off Cavani or a penalty.
Maybe he wants to put down 3 months of good play, so Barca come in at Christmas and say, okay, new year, we've got this year's budget to work with as opposed to last year's. We can actually get this done now.
Yeah, exactly. And he'll have the Champions League as a platform. Just do what Coutinho tried to leave Liverpool and he didn't happen for him in August. Put the head down, was in great form, got the move in January.
I think Neymar's stuck now.
For the whole year.
I'm not sure who actually would go out. I know Lionel Messi himself wants Neymar, but people can go off other players as well. Give him a couple of months. Wait till Barcelona start banging in the goals. Real Madrid have got this it's almost like a paper piece of Jenga or something, or a Jenga tower. It could go with just a little gust of wind like that. Gareth Bale scored twice at the weekend. They have this thing where it's very, very tender, very fragile, and this relationship could blow up at any point. If you insert Neymar into that, the whole thing comes falling down, I'd imagine. So I'm not sure what the cause is for Barcelona or Real Madrid to go and get him, except for the fact that he's an absolutely world-class player. But I think there's a little bit more to that when you've got two squads that are already filled with world-class players.
It's funny how the Bale thing has worked out. Even yesterday, the Real Madrid official Twitter account posted that great goal that he scored against Barcelona, where he was forced off the pitch and ran half the pitch and scored. So he's back in favour.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever's controlling that social media account is like, is it all right to post this, that Gareth Bale is in the good books again? Scored a couple of goals, but
scored more goals than Ronaldo now, the original Ronaldo for Real Madrid.
Yeah, the real Ronaldo.
The real Ronaldo.
Seamus McEnany, as I said, back as manager of the Monaghan senior footballers. He takes over from Malachy O'Rourke, who stepped down following the defeat to Armagh in the qualifiers in June after 7 years in the role. McEnany's previous stint in charge of the Farney County was between 2004 and 2010. His backroom team will include the former Tyrone coach Peter Donnelly and the former Dublin football and Tipperary hurling statsman Ray Boyne.
Well, just on that, the Donnelly situation is mad, isn't it? How did Tyrone manage to leave him go and yet Monaghan managed to pick him up? Because I was under the understanding that Peter Donnelly is one of the most sought after SNC coaches in Gaelic games, so good that he's being picked up by Ulster Rugby in a professional capacity, and therefore he would not be able to train with Tyrone.
Yeah, maybe this is as a consultant who's putting programmes in place as opposed to being there at every... I don't know.
Why isn't he the consultant to Tyrone GEA?
Well, maybe Tyrone...
Why are they letting him go and saying, yeah, just go freely with the prospect of another county in your own province picking him up?
Is it all duck or no dinner with Tyrone? You're on the inside pissing out or you're on the outside pissing in?
Potentially. Is that how it works?
Yeah. Just have to take that on.
Andy McEntee and Declan Bonner have also been ratified to stay on as the Meath and Donegal football managers respectively. All-Ireland winning manager with Limerick in 2018, John Kiley, will remain in his role after being handed a new 2-year term. The talk is that Davy Fitzgerald looks set to remain on for a 4th year as Wexford hurling manager. We haven't been too clear on it since the All-Ireland semi-final defeat to Tipperary at the end of July. But
he's got a busy winter, he's getting married, so they wanted to get that all tied down before it. But I know the players went down to see him like the next week and they've been on the phone straight away going, look, we banked this now. We're not building off nothing. But if you go, it's a disaster. So
they're two great bits of news for next year's championships. The fact that Donegal will have the same managerial team and that Wexford will have the same managerial team. Two teams that feel that they can get to an All-Ireland final next year.
Chris McNulty, just in light of the conversation that we were having earlier on with Michael Meehan, Chris McNulty of Donegal Sports Hub has tweeted this about Stephen Rochford. He says he expects Stephen Rochford to extend the Donegal stay as delegates give Bonner their blessing. So that would rule Rochford out from any involvement in the situation at Galway, which of course is not officially open yet, but which everybody seems to think is open.
That's fantastic news for Donegal. They'll be watching what happened on Sunday with their heads in their hands, thinking to themselves, how the hell did we manage to let this slip? Like, the result in Castlebar was a calamity. They had put up 120 against Kerry. Dublin put up 116. They will feel that they can go toe-to-toe with Dublin as well, and I believe that to be the case. They'll be back next year and they'll be looking, as I say, to make an All-Ireland final, and it's fantastic news that they managed to keep their management team together.
What is also fantastic news is we still have the possibility of Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer in a US Open final. They've never met at Flushing Meadows, which is pretty incredible. When you consider...
Ever?
Well, see, they've always been on the opposite side of the draw.
Right, and one of them always screwed it up.
Yeah, and they've never met. So Nadal beat Marin Cilic in 4 sets to reach the quarterfinals. So he will take on Diego Schwartzman in the last 8, and Federer is going to be in action later on against Dimitrov. So you'd imagine Federer is going into the semi-finals. Now, Stan Wawrinka's had something to say about this. He's basically saying, lads, I know you all want the Nadal and Federer final, but you know,
I'm good at this.
I'm good at this as well, and he could upset it. But yeah, that's what you want. That would be on Sunday, so you're talking early Monday morning. That'd be tough. I'd like to stay up and watch that.
I'm looking forward to the US media making this out to be the most important Nadal-Federer encounter of all time.
Well, the last one might be the most important. Who knows?
And it's 2018 in terms of Grand Slams.
Yeah,
you would imagine Nadal's got at least one more French Open in him.
So Nadal is the greatest.
If Nadal gets to 19 and then...
You've just written for them. Cover story for ESPN magazine. Fair play.
Tiger Woods was there last night, by the way, cheering on Rafa.
Cheering on Rafa, was he?
Yeah.
Why Rafa?
Well, maybe he just happened to be in town, but he was seen getting up out of a seat a few times, cheering him on.
Does he see perhaps Federer as a more legitimate challenger to his greatest of all time mantle, and perhaps kind of sees Nadal as less of a threat and gave him the applause, I wonder?
I don't know. The cynic in me just thinks of who they're sponsored by.
Ah, of course. Forgot about that.
Look, maybe they bonded over stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Are we going to show you Jamie Wall's picture? Or are you going to show the video of the water Kerry using water bottles in the...
Oh, yeah, I heard about this.
See this? It's on Twitter. Kevin Coakley on Twitter. So we'll do this one first. So Jamie Wall here tweeting, shouldn't be understated, was talking to people about how naive Galway were not to drop tons back with the kick-out's gone. The kick-out was gone before they had a chance, left 2v2 up top and gave the boys a chance. So Scally's of Blackrock tweeted, fair play to the Cork GA minor keeper Cian O'Leary after the hammer blow of a late goal by Galway. Instead of feeling sorry and thumping the ground, he got his kick out up the field as quickly as possible. 30 seconds later, they're going to extra time. #GOAT.
I was tweeting after the Galway goals, like, this is what happens when you don't go for a fisted point.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even sent the tweet and the ball was in the back net, so I had to scrap that tweet.
No, it was a good tweet. It was a perfectly legitimate. Here's the water. Look at the Kerry waterman. Oh, squirting
Peter
water.
Crowley.
Is it Peter Crowley?
That's Peter Crowley, isn't it?
No.
Peter Crowley's Mayor Ishka for Kerry, yeah?
Was he, yeah? No, we're not sure. Can't see it. That's actually Mayor Ishka or somebody else.
We could be accusing somebody of squirting water. Who cares?
It was quite a warm day. I'd say the Dublin player.
Oh yeah,
probably appreciated that.
Hope it's just water. Right. Kerry.
I was wondering who was going to throw the GPS at Dean Rock actually at the end, but
they didn't need to. It was too hard to free. Did you actually think that he was going to kick it?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
I didn't.
No.
Should have taken it off his hands.
Apparently there's Kerry fans in the background roaring at him, trying to put him off as well.
Yeah, I spotted one of my mates in the picture.
What?
I spotted one of my friends in the picture actually.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Definitely saw a few people in photographs. I was like, all right, I know that person. It's kind of unusual enough.
The Kerry fans behind the hill managed to make a bit of noise for the freeze.
Did they? Yeah.
It was sound that I didn't like. Obviously, the hill is absolutely. You've got to say the hill is one of the most magnificent sights on All Ireland final day. As much as it pains me to say it, but Kerry did manage to match him for a bit of noise. Not match him for a bit of noise, but make a bit of noise in the corner of the hill during a few rock freeze.
Did Kerry miss a free? Did O'Shea miss a free?
Don't think he did.
I don't remember
in the first half,
one.
like from quite far out on the right hand.
Yeah, maybe he missed one.
Yeah, I think that was the first one he'd missed since before the Super 8s.
Wow, okay.
Or the first game of the Super 8s.
That's incredible.
He was impeccable.
Yeah, not bad. Right, that is all from us this morning. You can listen into OTB Sports Radio throughout the day. A couple of easy ways to do it. You can just go to offtheball.com/radio, or indeed you can download the Go Loud app, and we're there in all our glory. You just click on the little G spot at the bottom, and up pops the Off the Ball logo, and that's OTB Sports Radio for you. We're back on the radio tonight at 7 o'clock, and a reminder that Ireland against Switzerland will be live in full glorious Technicolor on your radios from 7 o'clock on Thursday night. Nathan's going to be on commentary duty alongside the former Republic of Ireland captain David Myler, who has just announced his retirement from the game at the weekend. So that'll obviously be an emotional evening for him, and no doubt he's going to be a great co-commentator as well. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports